You remember when I had a fart chair and then I swapped it out for a chair that didn't fart, which was this chair? This chair farts now.
Farts now.
Remember when someone actually farted for real halfway through the podcast?
Remember when Nick farted every 5 minutes during the podcast?
All right, I'm in my little
Nick
hole.
was on the podcast?
No.
That's our intro.
I wish
right
I was
there.
there. Really? No.
No.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back once again to the Unstable Opinions podcast. It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
Again. Last time we came back, we said the same thing, and then we did 2 episodes.
This is the last time, I swear.
This is the last episode.
This is
For
it.
real this time. The show is not coming back after this.
You could just repurpose it as a checking in series.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's kind of
That's
what it is now.
Yeah.
I was joking before, but that is kind of what it is now. Anyway, it has been a while. If you've been subscribed to the channel, it has been a while since we made an episode. There isn't really any rhyme or reason to that. We just haven't gotten together to record anything. We've had a couple things that we thought we might do episodes about.
Particularly this one for like 6
Oh, yeah.
months.
Yeah. But, like, we've had some other ideas that we just never got around to coming together to record it. But as of the time that we're recording this, we're a few weeks out from the release of Spider-Man No Way Home. So, because we're all, like, desperate for this movie to come out, and just, like, we need to have some sort of output, or some sort of, like, what is outlet, I guess.
Yeah.
Place to vent.
Yeah, some
thoughts.
how, some way to just vent a little bit of this excitement so that we can bear the weight a little bit longer. If you're new here, my name is Chris. I'm here with my friend Gabe.
What's up?
And my friend Triston.
Howdy.
We've all got our own channels that I'll put in the description later. Also, we're usually joined by a fourth, Nick. He used to have a channel. He took everything down, and we always tell him to put it back up.
We've lost him ever since. We don't know where he went.
Yeah. He's just lost to time and space. He's lost to the multiverse of madness.
Yeah. Maybe he'll make an appearance in the movie.
Maybe we can get him to record another tacked-on outro,
Yeah.
like we did for WandaVision.
Yeah, I think that's the last time this channel has seen him. Was in the WandaVision.
We did WandaVision, and then we did one other one, didn't we?
Did we?
I think we did. I don't even remember what it was, though.
I think we were like, see you for
Another
Loki,
checking
and then
in.
we disappeared.
Yeah, we were planning to do one for all the Marvel shows, but we just kind of didn't get around to it. Anyway, to get straight to the point, we're here today, like I said, to discuss Spider-Man No Way Home, just kind of our current thoughts for the movie, our predictions, our hopes, where we think...
Our dreams.
Yeah.
Our fears.
Where we think things could go during and after the movie, the effects that it could have on the rest of potentially the Marvel Cinematic Universe and cinematic universes beyond it.
The implication. Because of the implication.
Yes. So, I do have some, just a short list of bulletins that we can sort of use to guide this, but really this is just kind of going to be like a loose conversation from a bunch of Spider-Man superfans about just our current thoughts about the movie and what we hope might happen, what we think might happen after the fact. So, I believe the best place to start with that is just, because this could go in a bunch of different directions, but I guess just the best place to start in general is just with No Way Home as a single movie. Like, what do we think about what could potentially happen in this movie within the body of it before we get into the effects it could have? So, Triston actually provided us, before we started recording, with a sort of a starting question to get the conversation going, which is just, what's in the box?
What is in the box?
That's a big one that's been on my brain ever since that trailer, because just to preface, I haven't read the leaks, if either even accurate. I don't know,
I didn't know there was readable leaks. I've seen a bunch of images.
There's apparently a plot
not to look at
synopsis that's
anything.
out there, but I stayed away from that as far as I could. I did see like the costumes for the villains before the trailer dropped, you know, just to see like the redesigns and stuff, but I stayed as far away from the leaks as possible. So I didn't know about the box until the trailer came out, and then I was like, what is that?
Yeah. Yeah. Just so we're clear about what we're talking about, in the trailers for Spider-Man No Way Home, there seems to be like some sort of like Doctor Strange like magic box that becomes a point of contention between Peter and Doctor Strange when Peter tries to steal the box after Doctor Strange tells him that the only way to like solve this problem is for them to send them back to their universes, the villains send them all back to their universes so that they can be killed by Spider-Man inevitably.
And if you haven't seen the trailer, why are you here?
You should definitely
go
not
watch that.
This is probably going to be multiple hours long discussion into everything we know about the movie so far. So you should definitely watch the trailers before listening to this.
This podcast is a Pandora's box. So if you like that kind of thing, we're getting back to the question, what do you think is in the box?
So I think I guess it would just be sort of a representation of some kind of the spell, like, because when they first mess up the spell, right, it sort of contains itself in the trailer back into some sort of like like a spinning orb. My guess is that ends up in the box, and that's sort of like, I don't know if it would be like holding everything together because everything already seems like it's chaotic.
Everything's falling apart as it is.
Yeah, but I do feel like it does have some significance in terms of the state of the universe and like Peter trying to take it for his own like intentions after Strange tells him that all these bad guys die fighting Spider-Man. I mean, that could be just a trailer thing that they recut, because for all we know, the way the trailers are set up are incredibly misleading.
Yeah.
Especially with the lizard being punched by nothing. Like stuff could be edited out.
All right, look, all I'm saying is Toby and Andrew aren't in it. They're confirming Ant-Man right there. That's who punches the lizard. Or it's Ant-Man.
Or Miles using his invisibility power.
No, it's Ant-Man. Only logical step, Ant-Man.
It's like when Ant-Man wasn't in Infinity War and everyone was like, well, he's in this shot. He's just so tiny so you can't see him.
You know, it could be an arrow from Hawkeye that hits him on the side.
Ooh,
who knows?
You're right.
Neither of you guys are caught up on Hawkeye.
Look, it just
Not
came
the
out
latest
today.
episode.
Yeah,
right?
the latest episode focuses a lot on trick arrows, but
That's good.
Yeah, I feel like I'm surprised that you made a reference like that without watching today's episode. Actually, But anyway,
I'm just on top of the game.
Yeah. So in terms of what's in the box, I really have no idea how it's gonna actually be significant in the plot, like what its powers or capabilities are gonna be.
But you think it's a metaphor, basically.
I do.
It's like-
Yeah, I
like
do
it
think that
contains
the spell
It's
is
symbolism
inside of it.
for like the fate of the universe.
Yeah,
Basically. It's
not
like
not so much a metaphor as much as just like a literal representation of the chaos that the spell is causing,
Yeah.
and that maybe if it's destroyed or if somebody can manipulate it in some way, it'll change what's happening around them. So like maybe if Strange is like, if Strange is like, we need to send these guys back to their universes, and my guess is the reason he tells Peter that they all die fighting Spider-Man, because he tells Peter they have to send them back just out of their universe. He doesn't tell Peter he has to kill them.
It's Otto that brings that up in the trailer.
Yeah, but
Fighting ghosts.
If sending these bad guys back to their universes means that they will die at the hands of Spider-Man, Peter might want to find an alternative because he doesn't want to send them back just to die.
Yeah.
Especially just because the villains that Peter in the MCU has faced up to this point do have like Spider-Man villains generally typically have like
families.
Well, yeah, they have like human problems, or like they have some sort of like human aspect to them.
Yeah, so they're not just a clear-cut bad guy.
Yeah, and even if it is something like where they are just a clear-cut bad guy, Peter's whole thing is that Spider-Man doesn't kill people. So sending them back with the knowledge that they will die at the hands of an alternate universe version of him, maybe just like freaks him out, and he's like, maybe we can reason with them, maybe we can get them over to our side. I do think that at some point in the movie, some of the bad guys are going to be recruited to Peter's side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Because Otto, obviously once he realizes that that Tom Holland isn't Tobey Maguire, they kind of like bring him in, and they're not fighting him anymore. I did see somebody say something that was kind of interesting, where they think that him absorbing the nanotech from Peter's suit is going to repair
it could have
the inhibitor chip.
That's what I think too.
Yeah, and that would make total sense. So that could get him back on their side, and then even the Goblin maybe, because
I feel like the Goblin's gonna try and like act like a good guy.
Yeah,
but
that's his entire thing.
Yeah, he's gonna be really washy.
I think with the Goblin, he's going to be one of the people that plays the like begging to live card,
like he did at the end of 1.
That sways Peter to take the box in the first place.
Yeah, but I think he's too far gone. Like,
yeah.
As a character,
I don't think there's any fixing Goblin.
Yeah,
but he is a two-faced person,
and like in the movie and like in the comics and a lot of stuff, he definitely like manipulates Peter and tries to appeal to his emotions a lot.
Yeah. Just like he does in the trailer.
Yeah, so that's like, it definitely reminds me a lot of Spider-Man 1 in that way. It's just interesting because in the we see him emerge from the smoke in the full Goblin costume with the mask, and then we have the images and the very quick shot of him without the mask.
Yeah, with that new like Mad Max-esque
and it's
goggles and everything.
And this could be an instance of them editing something out of the trailer just to kind of maintain secrecy or whatever. But, he wasn't one of the villains. Like, there was Sandman, Electro, and the Lizard kind of lined up all together at the end. But when we see him without the mask, it's just in that one nighttime shot. So I do think it'd be kind of interesting if Norman Osborn and Otto Octavius were both, like, on the side fighting against the other villains. But assuming that Toby and Andrew are in this fighting on Peter's side, I don't really know how they'd work all that together.
I think the only person that would, I don't know. Speaking to Sandman, I don't know, since he doesn't die in Spider-Man 3, but it's been said by executives and stuff that we'll find out why, down the line he would.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave Sandman out of this, but I do think that it's most likely that Otto is going to be the only one that is probably going to be more of a good guy than a bad guy.
That makes sense.
At the end of the day.
I mean, the only thing that was keeping him bad was the chip. So if that's fixed, I mean, he's just a dude with long arms.
Yeah, so on one hand, he might want to fight for his own survival, and that might keep him on the villain side.
Yeah, but if Peter's on the side of their survival, then he would just fight with Peter.
But on the other hand, he was also already willing to sacrifice himself to fix things.
Yeah, I think it's possible, too, that he might be the person responsible for Peter's integrated suit that he wears in the final battle.
I was going to bring
because it's
that
like
up.
He absorbs the nanotech from the Iron Spider.
But he didn't take all of it.
Yeah.
So that's what I think the integrated suit is.
Yeah, though the integrated suit, I think, is confirmed to be a combination of the Far From Home black and red suit and the Iron Spider. So I do think that that's going to be like maybe something that Otto does. We know when he fights Electro, he's wearing the suit inside out.
Yeah.
But that could be before the integrated suit is a thing. They kind of like to do that. They like to give, in the Homecoming Trilogy, they like to give Peter a different suit for the final battle. And the only time we see him wearing the integrated suit is in the shots that are supposedly the final battle of this movie.
Yeah.
So I imagine that if Doc Ock isn't going to be fighting, but he is going to be a good guy, he'll probably be the one responsible for making that suit. You did say you left out Sandman because Sandman doesn't die.
Yeah.
So
that is a very important question that I have, because he didn't die in Spider-Man 3. They made amends, and he just kind of dusts away.
He got oogwayed.
He really did.
That's something I did want to talk about, because I feel like, especially since it does seem like Loki's the consequences of the ending of Loki are kind of going to bleed into certain multiverse things, kind of like they did in What If. I feel like
maybe it's
I think
variant
exactly.
Sandman.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that I think some of the villains, not all of them, because Doc Ock obviously is the same Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, but Electro isn't.
Yeah,
unless he is.
But that's the thing, is that I think in order to explain certain things or just make it a little bit easier for the audience to swallow, I feel like some of these villains, not all of them, but some of them are probably variants.
I would prefer it if Sandman was a variant, because I don't like the concept.
It wouldn't really make sense
Yeah.
of that one who made amends to come back and just
I
don't like this Peter though.
I don't like the idea.
This Peter.
I don't like the idea of it being like in Spider-Man 3 they made amends, but then I guess somewhere down the line he kept being a villain, and then eventually Tobey Maguire had to kill him or something.
Yeah,
I don't like that idea.
Do you think that Electro, since he looks different, would also be a variant?
I think so.
I feel like that makes sense to me.
That I've seen a lot of debate on that though, because one of the recent TV spots provided like a closer up look of him, and people are pointing out that it looks like he has an arc reactor like on his like right up here on like his like collar region.
So instead of like,
some people are thinking that is what manages him being blue. Like he turns super blue.
Yeah, he instead of it actually just being his whole body at all times, he actually like channels it.
Like that arc reactor. Like, people are saying that that's either what makes him a different version of Electro, or that it's the same Electro and he's acquired this arc reactor.
He just
somehow.
got arc technology.
And that's what, like, helps him manage it. So that is like a regulator as far as the electricity goes. So he's not blue when he has that on.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
But the MCU is a much more technologically advanced, like, universe.
Yeah, rather than guy falls in tank of electric eels and turns blue.
Yeah. So. I think it's definitely possible either way. I do feel like, especially because there are so many villains in this movie, I feel like just to make sense out of some of their motivations, they might just want to pull them from different universes in the movies. Because obviously I feel like, especially since most of these villains did die in their movies, if they are pulling like Norman Osborn directly out of the Raimi trilogy, and especially Doc Ock, there was the one interview where Alfred Molina said that John Watts told him that it picks up right after he's drowning in the river. He
let it slip like right at the start before he was even announced, right?
Yeah. So I feel like some of them might be from the movies. It would make sense to me that some of them would be variants just so that they don't need to go over why these people are like bad again.
That would need a lot of flashbacks.
Because obviously the Sandman at the end of 3 wasn't bad. The Lizard, I don't even really remember the ending of Amazing all that much, even though I've seen it several times. Did
they cure him?
I think they cured him and then locked him up.
Yeah.
But
I think that's what happened, so unless he busted out and then
became the Lizard again.
I want to turn people into lizards still.
And it's like, it's entirely possible that if these are the same ones from the movies, they are just pulled out of the timeline before they die.
Yeah, from the moment that they're supposed to.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Or at least close to it.
Yeah. It'd be interesting how they explain it, though, just because, some of them come from the same universe. So it's like they're coming from the same universe, but they're coming at different points in time.
Yeah, so what does that imply for, like, if Doc Ock and Green Goblin are from the exact same timeline? Like, what would our version of Toby be doing?
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like at that point, just because it gets so convoluted, I feel like it would make sense for them to be variants, just because you can just be like, oh, they're just... You don't have to explain, like, this is how they got to this point from the last movie for every villain. It's just, they're a bad guy that fights Spider-Man in another universe, and now they're in ours. And, like, they just so happen to look like the versions that we know.
Yeah.
I hope that's not the case when it comes to the Spider-Man, but...
Technically speaking, like, they're variants of each other. All the Spider-Men, just in MCU terms, but it's the variants that we already know that we want to see. So they could do they could bring over
They could bring in more.
Tobey Maguire.
Honestly,
they could bring in more. They could bring in
more Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like we saw Loki. We saw how wacky the variants could be in Loki. One of them was a kid. Like they could bring in like child.
One
Spider-Man
of them was
a
lizard. Alligator Loki.
Oh yeah,
right.
They could bring in a version of Spider-Man that is the lizard, but isn't the Spider-Man, but is the lizard.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with the comics I've been reading, with all these alternate universes, there's just so many different versions of Spider-Man that there's literally nothing that they couldn't do if they wanted to.
But I don't think there's gonna be, not in this.
Yeah,
I don't think there's gonna be more
I don't think
Spider-Man,
they would do that.
Or, I don't really think they're gonna do a Miles. Even though I would love for a Miles.
Yeah.
I feel like it's too much.
I feel like if they did tease Miles, it would be an end credit scene for this movie.
That would be really cool, since this is right off the heels of them saying subtly that there's a new trilogy in the works.
Yes.
I think it'd be amazing if at the end of No Way Home they tease Miles being a little bit younger, maybe high school age, getting bit by the spider, right as Peter's going into college.
Yeah.
So then, like, high school Miles and college Peter working together would be, like, super
That'd be
awesome
so cool.
for this next trilogy.
I do want to talk about Miles more, but first I do want to talk about if, we're just going to talk about this assuming that Toby and Andrew are in this movie.
Yeah, this is pretty much all assuming that they are.
I'm
saying
this could miss the mark
whole time.
At this point, saying that they aren't, like, the discussion of whether or not Toby and Andrew are in the movie is the same as saying if aliens exist in real life. It's like, obviously we don't technically have concrete proof.
But
But sure, I mean, they got it,
it's
right?
so much more likely that they're in it than it would be that they're not in it.
We have to throw this entire podcast away if they're not, but it's fine.
Don't worry. The backup podcast will go live immediately after.
Yeah, right after this take, we're going to make an entirely different 3-hour-long podcast of our assumptions based on Toby and Andrew not being in it 100%.
if Toby and Andrew are in it, we'll record a multiple hour long reaction talking about how excited we are.
Probably
and if they're
the
not,
night of.
And if they're not in it, then we'll post like a 20-second long thing where we're just like, well, we were wrong. But
how about that?
Yeah. So assuming that they're in it, what do we think is going to be their role in this? My current point of view is that the rumors are that they come into the story about halfway through.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
And I think that makes sense to me because, people are saying like, oh, it'll be like Endgame where they show up right at the end when Spider-Man is the most desperate. They'll show up to be backup. And that would be kind of cool, and I'd be happy if they were in the movie no matter what. But I'm hoping that's not the case because I do want Tom Holland to actually have a relationship with them beyond just fighting side by side with them. Like, I want them to get to know each other and talk about what goes on in their own universes.
Yeah.
And I want them to actually... I want their characters to come back, not just them being like, all right, we're here, let's fight, guys.
Yeah, not just their Spider-Man.
Yeah,
but their Peter Parkers as well, because they were all different interpretations of Peter.
Yeah. And that's kind of why, the idea that there could be so many more Spider-Men from the Spider-Verse being in this movie, I feel like, obviously with the Doctor Strange clip being like, they're starting to come through, I can't stop them, like, we still have no idea what that means yet. It could mean more Spider people, it could mean more villains. But I feel like this movie should definitely focus on the core 3 Spider-Men. Yeah. And I think it'd be perfect if they did come in halfway through, like the rumors are saying, because that gives Tom Holland basically time to come to terms with what's going on, and then fight a bad guy and like maybe like get his ass kicked, and then just have the other ones come in and then they get to know each other and come up with a plan or something like that.
You think I just had this thought that like the whole they're starting to come through thing, that immediately read off to me when the trailer first came out as they're teasing the other two like coming in, but it stood out of place to me that it seemed like Doctor Strange was at the Statue of Liberty where it looks like the finale's going to be. So that line didn't seem to match up with where them coming into play would be. So I just had the idea of like, they do the first spell and it goes wrong. And then what if before Peter and Strange have bad blood because it seems to be going that direction. What if that's all sparked after they try to meet up and do the spell again. And it messes up, and then that's when they're starting to come through.
That's when the villains come through.
Yeah.
No, that's when So I would think that the first spell happens and it brings in the villains, and they don't know. And that's the whole. Ever since we did that spell, we've been getting visitors and all that, and then maybe the bridge scene happens or whatever, and then they try to fix it. The first time they try to fix it, and then they accidentally pull in the other Spider-Man.
They pull in the other Peters.
And then that's halfway through the movie. And then maybe after that, that's when Doctor Strange and Peter have a falling out. And then he kind of like narratively exits for a while. And then that like gives the door open for the other two Spider-Men to come into play. And then like bond with him.
That's true.
After Strange like exits for a while until the finale. Where they can put them all back.
It would be kind of odd because he sounds like he's panicking when he says they're starting to come through and I can't stop them. Like, and maybe that's just like he doesn't know what's coming through, and then when it turns out to be more Spider-Man, he's just like, oh, well, okay.
Either that or he doesn't know what happens if you bring in 3 versions of the same person in the same space. You know? That hasn't been done before other than Loki, but that's like outside of space and time.
Yeah.
So like that might be a problem, or he might not know what that means, you know, because like if you go, I know they've already clowned on this, but if you go off of Back to the Future, like 2 people that are the same person in the same spot at the same time breaks everything, apparently, you know, so maybe in his mind, you know, you have 3 Peter Parkers, like they're coming through, and this might just destroy everything right now.
like a Mordo, like the bill always comes due kind of thing.
Like oh no.
Yeah, it's possible.
Now, what if the things that come through are just all Kang the Conquerors?
That'd be really funny.
And then
bunch of
all
Kangs?
the Spider-Man and the villains start fighting Kangs. Think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be more villains because, I mean, it's possible if the multiverse is just breaking and breaking, they could
maybe more of them spill throughout the course of the movie.
Or like they try to lure all of them to the Statue of Liberty to send them back, right? Like all at the same time, but they're running out of time, and as the multiverse continues to just like kind of crack open, like more and more villains are coming through that they kind of have to work around before the spell can send them all back to where they came from.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I'm just wondering like what other villains could they even possibly like do, because obviously there's hundreds of Spider-Man villains, but like
speaking on that, I want to do a spoiler alert for Venom 2. Have you guys seen?
Yes.
Venom, Let There Be Carnage.
Let There Be Carnage.
Yes.
I think we should talk about the end credit scene there.
Let's address the symbiote in the room.
Yes. So if you haven't seen the movie, you can skip to after we're done talking about Venom. But
I'm just going to assume that everyone listening to this, just to make it easier for myself and not have to do timestamps, I'm just going to assume that everyone listening to this really long Spider-Man predictions podcast is caught up.
Yeah, if you're still watching
Spider-Man.
at this point, you're caught up.
Yeah.
Or you're going to get spoiled.
Yeah.
But, that's like our first official look at what it looks like for someone to get brought into the MCU.
Yes.
What do you think, like, where do you think he fits in? Do you think he's going to be in it?
I feel like he's gonna be one of the after credit scenes.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Because I don't think like he's gonna make a big appearance in the movie. And it wouldn't make sense for just like a name drop. Oh, I heard about this Venom guy.
Yeah. So I did want to talk more in depth about this because this is sort of implications after this movie, right?
Yeah.
But one of my original theories, especially because of how Tom Holland was talking about this movie, was that maybe Tom Holland would die in this one, and then maybe Miles would take up the mantle, and then they kind of because just the way they were talking about it had just a sense of finality to it. So I was like, oh, maybe this is the end, and maybe he sacrifices himself, and like the other 2 Peters are left to mourn him or something. But Amy Pascal basically just said, no, we're doing 3 more and Tom Holland is going to be in them.
Yeah.
So we know that his story doesn't end here. What I'm curious about now, sort of moving away from No Way Home into the future of the universe, is after this, because of what happens in the Venom post-credit scene where Venom gets brought into the MCU. I do wonder how much crossover there will be going forward for between the Sony universe and the Marvel universe. And that was another thing I was thinking about, was if the multiverse is just kind of shattering, right? It's possible that every sort of Spider-Man universe just gets folded into one timeline.
I would like that. Yeah.
Because
that'd be nice.
They could just take the best of all universes.
Yeah.
And that way, also leaves implications for X-Men.
Yeah.
If we're bringing in
Exactly.
other universes.
Yeah. And that way they can pull characters from wherever they want without, like, needing to set them up again. Like, they can, like, you know, now they have, like, Green Goblin and Doc Ock and all these characters that usually do come back to haunt Peter multiple times, but, you know, because of the way the movies were formatted, they just died at the end of them, right? But now they're bringing them all back, and they're setting up new villains in the Sony universe that they do want to cross over with Spider-Man. So I think it is possible, especially because of the Morbius trailer sort of seeming to combine elements of a lot of the different cinematic universes.
With the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and the
Tobey
graffiti.
suit, the Oscorp from Amazing Spider-Man, Vulture being in it, even though it's been established at the end of Venom that they're two different universes. Maybe they all just kind of get melded into one.
Maybe there's just some characters that you can't recast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes they look different, like Peter Parker, but then sometimes they don't look different, like Vulture and
Maybe
JJ.
that is a variant Vulture.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking before Venom Let There Be Carnage happened, right? I was like, maybe going forward, because they kind of made it seem like Spider-Man was going to appear in the Sony movies at some point, and now they renamed it to Sony's Spider-Man universe. So it's kind of obvious that at some point Spider-Man is going to be in those movies beyond just end credits cameos.
Yeah.
And I assumed for a while that it would just be Tom Holland, but it would be a variant of Tom Holland and not the same one from the MCU. But now Venom is in the MCU, and he's going to go do something to Tom Holland's
That
Spider-Man.
guy.
So one of the things if they don't merge them into a single universe, it would be interesting if they are going to do another trilogy with Peter, maybe Miles is the Spider-Man that appears in the Sony movies.
Ooh, I
That'd
would
be cool.
love that.
Yeah.
If the Sony Spider-Man was Miles and the MCU Spider-Man was Peter.
Yeah, that kind
Run
of
them at the same time.
Yeah, that kind of
Gimme.
gets rid of the option for them to exist side by side, but it could be a deal where maybe Peter did exist in the Sony universe and then died, and then Miles took his place.
Yeah.
And maybe they get better at crossing, you know, multiverses after this, so they can like team up.
Yeah.
Like how they do in the Miles movie.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, that one.
And I do find it hard to believe that, you know, Venom is going to be the only one of the Sony characters that they want to interact with Tom Holland, but I do feel like it's kind of redundant for them to just do a multiverse jump every time they want him to fight one of them.
Yeah.
You know, it just makes more sense for them to be in the same universe. So maybe Miles ends up being the Sony universe Spider-Man. And that'd be good too, because that gives them, like, you know, they're able to focus on Miles while still telling stories about Peter without making him a supporting character.
And if they do the opposite and then they merge the universes and everything, they could just have Miles just turn down the Avengers level stuff and just want to be the friendly neighborhood guy.
Yeah, because they have kind of hinted at the fact that they want Tom Holland to be basically the new, like, Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., where he's kind of the center of everything.
So they could have an Avenger Spider-Man as Peter, and Miles could be there to take care of his little corner of New York, and that would maintain this balance of, like, because there are a lot of people that want Peter to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but they have set him up in this other direction as an Avenger, so they could totally just run two Spider-Men at the same time, doing different things, and when they need to, they can cross over.
Yeah, that's the ideal scenario,
That'd
I think,
be
for me. I was going to say something else. I think when they announced freshman year, I was kind of under the impression that, like, that was going to be just kind of how they kept telling Tom Holland stories while also using... I feel like it just makes sense for them to set up Miles. I feel like it's inevitable, just because they've hinted at it in the MCU. he's become such a popular character after Into the Spider-Verse, and also the fact that they're making like all these movies, like they're making a Spider-Woman movie, and they're making a Silk live-action TV show. Like, I just find it hard to believe that in all these projects they don't have any idea of where Miles fits into it, because I feel like he just needs to be a part of it at some point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess if they are going to be two separate universes, or even if they are going to be in the same one, I feel like it just makes sense for Miles to be the Sony Spider-Man.
Miles is a must.
But, yeah.
Because they're going to continue with Tom Holland in MCU anyway, so he can't really leave.
And it seems like externally, like outside of MCU stuff, they're already setting up Miles to be the next, like, mainline Sony Spider-Man, you know, because you look at the PS4 game, they set him up immediately, and he got his own game immediately. Before Peter even got his story continued, he got that. Miles got a movie with Into the Spider-Verse.
Yep, and now they're making
selling
Spider-Man
Miles merch everywhere.
And now they're making Spider-Man 2, the video game Spider-Man 2, with Peter and Miles being playable in equal capacity, presumably.
Yeah, and the symbiote is being introduced, so like the movies could take note of this.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing to me. That's another thing I want to bring up. But also, they're doing the Into the Spider-Verse sequel, which is probably going to be called Across the Spider-Verse if the rumors are correct.
It just seems like in the current era of Spider-Man content, Peter and Miles coexisting at the same time is like almost a definite.
Yeah.
Like everywhere else other than the MCU has that right now.
Yeah.
And I really need it in the MCU.
Yeah.
I want it so bad.
And I do think that an interesting part of Miles' origin is that most of the time his Peter Parker has to die before he becomes Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because in that scenario, he kind of like needs to figure things out on his own.
Yeah.
And I think that's a cool... that's sort of a cool origin for him. I prefer that to when him and Peter just always exist at the same time. I'm fine with him losing Peter and then joining with an alternate universe Peter or something like that at some point. But I guess we'll see. We'll see if Miles, the Spider-Man version of Miles, because obviously Miles exists in the MCU because of the Easter egg in Homecoming.
Yeah.
But we'll see if the Spider-Man... if Miles's Spider-Man is from the Sony universe or the MCU.
I kind of enjoy the concept of Miles and Peter coexisting, though, because like the idea of one of them learning how to be Spider-Man on their own kind of already exists with Peter. So like, I like the we get that with Peter, and then like Miles just having a mentor figure. I dig that.
If they do that, then I think they should do that idea of like Peter being the Avenger guy. Cause
so Miles happens.
It's gonna
on his
crowd
own
New
time.
York.
Yeah.
And
too many spiders in New York.
Yeah, and I still think it's better for Miles to sort of have to figure certain things out on his own.
He could have a movie or two without Peter involved.
because a part of the cool aspect of him is being accepted as his own Spider-Man. Like he's not only internally like, how do I step into those shoes of this like, you know, hero that's already so beloved, but also like, you know, not having Peter around all the time, like having to prove himself just as much as Spider-Man to people, because like, you know, a lot of the times in the stories people are like, you aren't the real Spider-Man, or like something like that. I feel like just him overcoming his own doubts and also winning the trust of the public is sort of a cool aspect of his origin.
It just seems like they've adapted so much of that into Tom Holland's Peter with like, instead of being another Spider-Man, it's Iron Man, you know? Like, the more we talk about it, the more I realize that, like, the current Peter Parker is just so much of Miles.
Yeah, even down to, like, Ned basically being Genki.
Ned and Genki, and then the whole, you know, like...
I did say to you...
The press asking him, are you going to be the next Iron Man? He's like, no. Are you the next lead Avenger? No.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah. It's funny, I think I mentioned to you, sort of as a joke, but I was like, if Ned is just going to be Genki for Peter in the MCU, what if Miles' best friend is Harry Osborn?
That would be amazing. I want it.
Yeah, but I just don't know who would play him. But I'm sure, I mean, they're like amazing with casting in the MCU.
Yeah, they're good at that. Yeah. They'll figure it out.
Yeah. So one of the next things I did want to talk about was something that we briefly touched on a little bit.
What's in the box?
Which is kind of where we feel Peter Parker's story is going to go after this movie. And one of my predictions kind of has to do with something you said about them kind of taking inspiration from the games, even though the next game isn't even out yet.
Yeah.
But I can kind of see both the movies and the games going in this direction. So, one of the stories, I haven't read it. I'm about to read it. I rented it, but considered one of Spider-Man's best stories is Kraven's Last Hunt.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
And so before No Way Home, before the story for No Way Home was a thing, John Watts said in interviews that he would like Kraven to be the bad guy in the next one before the plans for No Way Home and the multiverse were like a thing. And now Sony's making their Kraven movie with Aaron Taylor Johnson. But they've already established the possibility for crossovers between the MCU and the Sonyverse.
Don't let Wanda see him.
Yeah, I know.
What are we gonna do now?
Yeah, she's just so confused because last time she saw her brother, he was Evan Peters.
Yeah.
And she just accepted it.
And now he's just an entirely different person with the exact same face.
Yep. But, yeah, so they're setting up Kraven in the Sonyverse.
Yeah.
And now the symbiote is in the MCU. And Peter Parker has the symbiote suit during Kraven's Last Hunt. So I think it would be interesting. I don't know if they'll do it because they don't really do one-to-one adaptations of the comic storylines most of the time. They mainly just adapt characters in certain aspects, certain moments into the movies. But I initially was like, oh, it'd be cool if they did Kraven's Last Hunt because they're setting up Kraven as a villain in his own movie. And the symbiote is now in the MCU, and hopefully we'll get a story where the symbiote bonds with Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Because we've had that story in Spider-Man 3. Wasn't exactly what it needed to be. It was
there. It happened.
Yeah. I still love it in its own way, but I still want to see that story done right on the big screen. And it's already
got some ideas on that already.
It's already kind of, I don't want to say ruined, but they already can't do it the way it was kind of meant to be done because it's already bonded with Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock.
It's backwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
I had a thought on that. So, going back to us saying what do we think is going to happen with Venom in No Way Home, I don't think he'll be in it more than just maybe a post-credit scene.
Yeah.
And
because I feel like it wouldn't be more than a cameo, and it doesn't make sense for him to have a cameo in the middle of the movie because it would just stop the plot in its tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, if he is going to show up, because he said that he agreed to Venom's idea of being a protector of anything, so
lethal
he
protector.
could show up for the final battle and fight with Peter.
Yeah,
I feel like that's an interaction that could
happen. It'd be really funny if he was just like, "Yeah, we're here too."
Yeah. But
it would
beyond
still
that,
feel out of place.
I think they're just gonna save it for an after credit.
Yeah. So I think he might just be in an after credit scene because you got to take into account the people that didn't watch the Venom movies because they're not in the MCU. So I think this movie will have an after credit scene reminding people that already saw it that he's in the MCU now and showing MCU fans that he's in it.
Yeah.
now.
Well, I don't even think they'd really need to illustrate that just because they're already pulling villains in from other universes.
Yeah, if someone didn't see it, they'd just be like, "Oh, he came over too."
Well, yeah, they can just do that.
I still don't think it would make sense in the context of the story because all the other ones are Spider-Man villains. If it is the same Venom from the Sonyverse, they haven't fought Spider-Man before. They have no connection.
Yeah.
So. I mean, they did. There's the thing with the hive mind,
Well, yeah, and the thing is, Tobey Maguire would probably have something to say about seeing a Venom.
Yeah, he would.
That would be interesting if Tom Hardy's Venom is eventually destined to die at Spider-Man's hands, because all of the other villains, they said they all die fighting Spider-Man.
Yeah,
and it's we don't know about them being variants or not, but we know for sure that Tom Hardy's Venom from the Venom movies got transported over.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing is that Venom, didn't Venom voluntarily transport them to the MCU?
No, he didn't. Not voluntarily. It was just he said something about how the symbiotes basically have a hive mind of knowledge and experience across universes, and then he said he was going to share it with Eddie, but then that's when they get transported, and Eddie's like, what happened? And Venom says it wasn't me. So it could just be a coincidence.
Yeah, or it could be that like trying to access that hive mind from like a different universe.
Yeah,
at the same exact time that Strange was doing the spell.
Yeah.
Could have brought him over.
Or it like maybe connected him to the Raimi Venom, and that's why they got transported over with everyone else.
Yeah, it could have been that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think he's only going to be in it as far as a post-credit scene goes because there's only 2 movies for Venom so far.
Yeah.
So he needs at least one more. So I would figure that gives them enough time to do one more movie with Eddie Brock and Venom as a thing for the main characters of that movie. And then maybe down the line, since we're getting the Tom Holland college trilogy, that they're now in the same universe. Maybe they don't come face to face at this point in time, but maybe Eddie and Venom have another split up, and it's like serious this time.
Yeah, and now that they're in the MCU,
and now Venom has already seen Peter Parker out there and has been, visually attracted to him at the end of the current after credits that we have. So maybe they split. Venom has an out, and he goes and finds Peter.
Yeah.
And that's how he knows about him. So then it's kind of like a reverse of how it usually is, where it goes from Peter to Eddie.
Imagine just literally giant like Peter Parker as a Venom guy.
No, but even then, like I'm just like imagining if that was the case, then that would just mean that all 3 Venom movies have the exact same plot.
Yeah.
Where
they
just get together and then they break up,
and then they have to,
and then they disagree with each other because they can't live in each other's bodies.
He latches onto a girl, turns into a girl for like 10 seconds, then they kiss, and then he's Venom again. And they're like, "That was cool. Let's do it again."
I feel like it would make more sense for like them to get split up.
They get separated somehow.
They not voluntarily.
Yes.
And then maybe him and Peter combine just because Peter's like the ideal, because he was basically killing people when he tried to combine with them in Venom 2.
Yeah.
But maybe he sees Peter as an ideal host to get him back to Tom Hardy.
Isn't it initially that Peter is a better host for Venom's symbiote than Eddie Brock is?
That's I think that's part of the reason why Venom becomes a villain at first, is because they're not exact. They're a chaotic match.
Yeah. So what if that would mean, that eventually that would set up Eddie Brock to be a villain in the college trilogy for Tom Holland, because maybe he gets separated from Venom by force somehow and he wants it back. But maybe, Peter is a better fit for the symbiote.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to give it up. And Venom's kind of caught in between. And Eddie wants the symbiote back. Yeah, it's a love triangle, but it's more violent than that, because we kind of had that with Let There Be Carnage.
Yeah. And like Peter's personality is kind of like, becoming like he becomes more attached to the power when he has it, so that's why he doesn't want to give it up.
That could make Eddie like a threatening villain on his own without the suit even.
Yeah.
He could that could give him a character overhaul to make him more of a villain. And then that makes Peter bad because he doesn't want to give the suit up. And then maybe eventually it goes back to like Venom and Eddie are back together and they're more of an anti-hero.
Yeah.
But they get one movie where they're both bad.
Yeah. That'd be really cool.
I think that would be a cool concept.
Yeah.
And he's in college at this point, so maybe it's like a college party trick or something.
Yeah. So that's definitely like a possibility. I feel maybe for a 3rd Venom movie, not so much a 4th Spider-Man. I said I'd be cool if they did Kraven's Last Hunt, but that's the other thing, is that I don't know if they'll set up the pieces for that to happen right after No Way Home.
Yeah.
And also
it could be a slow burn.
It's very much 3 more movies.
Yeah, and it very much seems like Kraven's Last Hunt is what they're doing in the game, because it's the symbiote and Kraven.
Yeah. They might not want to do both of them exactly twice.
Yeah.
Or very close together.
Yeah. But now I guess we're on the subject of college trilogy hopes and predictions.
Yeah. Okay. Before we veer too far into that, though, I do want to go around on an individual basis and just ask, like, what do you think the structure of No Way Home will be like? Like, what do you think? Do you think someone's gonna die? Do you think
like predictions and stuff?
Yeah. Like, where do you think it's gonna go? Like, what? Like, not exactly like take an exact guess at like each act, but like what character moments do you think is
the
going to
general
happen?
structure,
Yeah,
the general beats of the story.
You know, take a shot in the dark at whose character relationships get tested,
Yes.
or you know, who gets drawn to who dies, who you know gets an upgrade, this that, you know,
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
kind of thing. What do you think?
Yeah,
You
well,
know?
I think the way that I like we've been talking, he's gonna lose the Iron Spider nano suit and stuff, and that's gonna go to Otto, and then he's gonna turn the Homecoming suit inside out to fight Electro, and then he's going to probably get a new suit for the final thing. But I'm hoping that in the middle of that, like that's when the other two Spider-Men are gonna come in. I don't know if they're gonna save it for the last fight, but I'm just myself wish that they can form a relationship.
Flesh them out.
Yeah.
That'd be very nice.
And then I think the whole movie is probably going to be more towards setting up Doctor Strange 2 and the implications of that. Like, I think that's going to be one of the after credit scenes, is setting up Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
And then another one could either be Miles or Venom, you know, tying one of those two in. Because those are the characters we're not really going to get to see in the movie, but are going to be, you know, really big Spider-Man lines.
Yes.
And then other like interactions that would be cool is you know, the Spider-Man talking about Tobey Maguire's natural
So you
spider
have web
webs.
blood.
Yeah. Yeah, like what that would be cool. Seeing Tobey talking to Venom would be great, but I don't think we're gonna see that in this movie.
Yeah.
And just seeing Venom like fighting with Spider-Man, because he's been on both sides in the comics and stuff. So I think if he would be in this one, he'd be fighting with them, but it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he hasn't been around long enough in this world to really get on board with it.
This
other than
whole
just, like,
fiasco.
people are throwing cars. I'm here. Let's
Yeah.
do it. You know?
It's just so funny.
And he's,
Just
like,
the
on
idea
an
of him
island
coming out of
right
nowhere,
now.
like,
That
oh, I'm here
would-
too.
That would really be funny if he does the whole like Don Cheadle in Iron Man 2, like, I'm here.
Boom, you looking for this?
I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're
I'm
thinking.
here,
I'm
let's
here.
go.
It's now. Deal with it. You know, move on.
Yeah.
That's funny. So,
One cool thing that would be great is if like they're coming through and I don't know how to stop them is happening, and then Deadpool drops.
That would be phenomenal.
That'd be awesome.
We have to get Spider-Man and Deadpool.
Spider-Man
movie.
and Deadpool could like it's a long shot, but this is the first time that it might actually be a thing.
yes. So, that is one of the things that I'm looking forward to in the college trilogy and in No Way Home, is just Spider-Man interacting with characters that he wasn't able to interact with before. And that kind of is part of what I feel like the structure of this movie is going to be. I do think... I guess I'll talk more about... I could maybe mention Deadpool again when we get to the college trilogy predictions, but because they have... like, people on both sides have said they want to do a Spider-Man and Deadpool movie at some point.
Yeah.
But in terms of this movie, I feel like it's going to start out right from where Far From Home left off, with them like escaping the news choppers and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of chaos, and you know, people are going to start changing their perspectives on Spider-Man. There's going to be, you know, school drama. Daredevil's going to show up to help with the legal implications of whether or not Spider-Man was responsible for the death of Mysterio and whether Mysterio was a hero or a villain. You know, I'm hoping that we get moments where Liz, like maybe we see Liz reacting to like watching the reveal that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and just have like a moment. She doesn't even have to
just
say
to remind
anything.
people that Liz was a thing.
Just like not even like she doesn't even have to say anything. Just like have a thing where she's like reacting,
like watching
and like
TV
oh my god
in silence or something.
Obviously, I'm hoping that Flash
she
comes
says,
up
like,
to
I
Peter
knew
and
it.
like or like I hope Flash comes up to Peter and is like, oh
That's
hey
a
man,
big one.
yeah, like he's like you know all those times I was making fun of you, I was just like kidding around, right?
I feel like by that point, like they're already gonna be past that interaction.
Yeah.
Though, like it seemed like Flash is already like on
He's gonna be like,
Peter's side. Is like he made amends and stuff.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool to see it.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, that's the first act is gonna be all that stuff, and then at the end of the first act, I feel like is gonna be when they fuck up the spell and the multiverse starts happening, right?
Yeah.
So then Peter is gonna fight Doc Ock, which is like basically the only scene that we have a good idea of how it plays out.
But we don't, though, because we saw that Gabi's on the bridge too.
Yeah, that's true.
There's like 2 seconds where he's on the bridge,
I
so
think
we don't
They
know
just
where.
go back to the bridge.
Yeah, we don't. It's always the entire movie takes place on this bridge.
With that
right?
fight, I think like that's after he finds out that it's not his Peter Parker, and then Gabi comes around and he's like, "Oh, there's something else happening," and he drops Peter. And then they might have a brief interaction, but then
He's like,
but
ooh, and then he like flies.
Yeah, he just flies away. It would
He's
be
like,
very
I'm your
brief.
cameo. And he leaves.
But regardless, I think they're gonna fight. They're gonna understand what's going on with Doc Ock's help, and then sometime around the middle of the movie will be maybe Peter fights Electro before the other Spider-Men get brought in. I'm really not sure how it's all going to fit together in the end, just because I want them to have enough time for Peter to get to know the other Spider-Men so that they can have good character moments at the end.
Yeah.
Where they're actually like friends with each other. But so everything we know so far, I'm just like not sure where they fit in terms of fighting Electro and everything, especially because their suits aren't really technologically advanced like Peter's is, so them turning their suits inside out wouldn't make sense. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and Toby
possible.
has web blood.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that the MCU Spider-Man goes to fight Electro, and then at the same time, because Electro's in the final battle, maybe at the same time, Toby and Andrew are going to fight the Lizard and Sandman, and they're trying to lure them all into the same place for the final battle.
That would be cool.
Yeah, so those fights will happen. There'll be some stuff in there about J. Jonah Jameson ruining Spider-Man's reputation.
Yeah.
And then the final fight takes place in the Statue of Liberty. I don't think anyone is going to die, because I feel like them killing Toby or Andrew would not go over well at all. It would feel like an arbitrary sort of like Star Wars sequel trilogy type deal.
That would burn. It would burn a lot.
Yeah, it's not necessary for them to kill them.
Yeah.
I feel like even though they've said this movie's darker, I really feel like it needs a triumphant ending, I feel like, especially, I was thinking if it was going to have a sad ending, it would be Tom Holland's Spider-Man dying. But they've said they're going to keep making movies with him, so we know he's not going to die.
Yeah.
So, if that is the case, then my hope is that Peter's goal of not having to kill any of the villains actually comes true, and they're able to send them all back and, like, I want the ending to be optimistic.
Yeah.
I want it to be like the 3 Spider-Men work together, kind of like the end. They called this their end game. I want it to be triumphant in that sense, where they come together and they overcome like insurmountable odds, and then at the end of the day, they actually do like save the day and go home. And the moment where MJ's falling off the scaffolding, that everyone has said this by now, but Andrew needs to be the one to catch her.
Yeah. My thoughts on the ending and like what happens to the Spider-Man. I don't think any of the Spider-Men die.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe Otto would be one to die fighting on the Spider-Man side, and that could be the sad ending for Otto.
Like one of the villains like dies, and like they're like, well, he says we can't. He says I can't save everyone.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
He just comes to terms with that.
And I feel like the other 2 Peters would like in the end. Hopefully they've built their relationship up, and then they take their villains back.
Like, come on, let's get you to bed. Like, pat on the back in a juice box. Like,
yeah, we'll try again next time.
I don't want to
go home. We gotta go finish our movies. Come on.
We gotta go make Spider-Man 4 and Amazing Spider-Man 3 now.
Yeah. I don't know where, like, if they would show up again, where they would show up, in the future Spider-Man movies. But I don't think they're gonna die.
I think it'd be cool if they did like a TV miniseries or something with the other Spider-Man.
That could be really cool.
But I feel like if they've confirmed that Tom Holland is going to be the face of the movie, so I feel like even we've got maybe potentially Miles in the Sonyverse if our predictions end up coming true. We've got Tom Holland in the MCU, and then I feel like it's counterintuitive for them to make movies with the other Spider-Man at the same time. But I think it'd be cool if we got like a TV miniseries or something.
Yeah. What if they were? What if like Toby and Andrew were both like in the same universe together?
That'd be cool.
That'd be
and they
cool
were just figuring out like what. Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because something's gonna happen, like with the whole multiverse thing that's going. I think it's probably gonna directly set up Doctor Strange too, because he's gonna be the one having to figure out that mess.
Yes.
So I don't know what the universes are gonna look like. I feel like Sony's gonna have a separate one, but they might deal with that in Venom 3 or something like that.
I feel like the end credits scenes for this movie, there's a lot of possibilities. I feel like Multiverse of Madness is just going to be set up at the end of this movie and not so much after the credits, just because Doctor Strange is a main character.
Yeah.
So, like, I feel like it's going to be like, okay, that's another thing that's kind of confusing me at this point, because it's like, obviously, Doctor Strange 2 is also heavily dealing with the multiverse, so even if they fix this problem, it could just be a Spider-Man related thing, and he's like, okay, we solved this problem, now I gotta go deal with the entire rest of the multiverse.
Yeah, he's
like,
got some stuff to do.
We've checked Spider-Man off the list. Yeah. Now we have to do everything else.
Everything else. But by saying, like, in an after credit scene, I mean, like, maybe Wanda would show up, or he would go find Wanda.
Yeah.
He would, like,
to get help or something.
What I'm thinking, my ideal post-credit scenes, I think, it sucks because I have so many ideas for where I want things to go.
Yeah.
Because I want them to set up Miles, obviously. But what's more likely, I feel like, is we get some sort of Venom tease at some point. If not during the movie, we get it in the end credits.
Yeah.
If it's not a Venom tease, then if there's not a Venom tease, or there is a Venom tease during the movie, then we get a Miles post-credit scene. And then I feel like maybe one of the other ones is Daredevil. Because Daredevil, I don't think will be involved in this movie past the first, like, hour. Like, he's going to be helping him with the legal aspect of things, but he's not going to be a superhero in this movie, and he's probably going to leave the story once things actually start going down.
I think this movie's going to basically be a soft reset for him.
Yeah.
And more of a introduction into the mainline MCU, since he only had the show.
Yeah.
So this will be like a...
Yeah. And, like, Hawkeye is already setting up Kingpin coming back.
What?
So, yeah.
I haven't seen the third episode yet.
It's not in. It's not.
Doofus.
It's technically it's not like anything to do with.
It's just they keep talking about someone at the top. In the first and second episodes, they're saying, like, the Tracksuit Mafia is, like, who's their boss, you know?
Man, this whole time I thought it was Yelena.
It's been rumored.
I'm gonna be real.
He told me that, and I'm like, I hope that the mob boss is Daredevil.
No.
Well, because at the end of Black Widow, you know, Valentina shows Yelena, like, this is the man who killed your sister.
I mean, it's definitely likely that Yelena will be in it too, but everyone's thinking at this point that the person running the Tracksuit Mafia is going to be Kingpin, especially because you saw episode 2, right?
Yeah.
At the end of episode 2 is Maya Lopez, who's Echo, who in the comics is Kingpin's adopted daughter.
Oh, I had no idea who that was.
It's just been heavily rumored, but I don't think.
And Vincent D'Onofrio was liking tweets about rumors of him being in the show, so we're still not confirmed at this point.
True.
But
we're getting closer and closer to Daredevil every minute.
Yeah,
it's not happened.
The episode that he's rumored to be in is the one that comes out the day before No Way Home. So okay. My guess is that it's going to be sort of the same way that Spider-Man was in Civil War for, like, a short amount of screen time, and then the end credit scene was like, oh, Spider-Man's going to go do his own thing now.
Spider-Man will return.
Yeah.
It'll be like Kingpin will return.
Or Daredevil will return, you know?
Yeah.
Because we only see him as a lawyer during the movie, but maybe the end credit scene is him, like, looking at his superhero suit or something after all the chaos goes down or something.
So,
well, how is he going to be looking at the superhero?
Oh my god.
Shut up. All right.
I just became every supporting character in Daredevil, where they just say something about, like, can you watch where you're going? And he's like, no, actually. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry.
All right.
God damn it.
So here's where I can see this going.
Yeah.
Right? You get it? All right. So, all right. So, yeah, I agree with you that the first, like, maybe half hour of No Way Home is, like, Peter dealing with, like, the immediate aftershocks of Far From Home and everything.
Yes.
And then there will be some time spent with Daredevil and, like, clearing up the legal stuff and this and that. But one thing we haven't addressed yet are the, like, agents that we see that,
S.H.I.E.L.D.
like, Yeah, no,
Phil Coulson.
Yeah, Phil Coulson is in there. No, but the specifically the very, very quick shots of like Aunt May running really frantically and Happy in a car surrounded and like a bunch of agents busting into Peter's apartment and everything.
Oh
and
yeah, I didn't even. God.
Yeah, and soon after that is when
there's so much shit happening in this movie.
Yeah, so the part where when you hear him say, "I'm sorry, I can't save everyone," it cuts to him, and what I assume is Aunt May. Just you see the back of her head, and she's like patting at him, and it's kind of like just judging off of body language, it looks like she's having a breakdown. So I really do think that him saying that isn't like a trailer like confused thing, that he's like not actually saying that to her, he's saying it to someone else. I think he's straight up telling her that, and that's my guess, is that Happy is the one to bite the bullet in this movie.
That would be so
See, I've heard that like Aunt May might die, but
I was
never
thinking
thought
that
about
for
Happy
a while.
dying.
Yeah, I thought that at first when I saw the trailer, and when I saw him holding her, I was like, oh, she's dead, But the more I saw it, and then I went back and paid attention and saw that she was like patting at him like frantically.
Yeah.
I think it's because in Far From Home they're setting up that they're like they have this like summer fling, and he thinks it's a budding romance, and they're on and off about what they are.
Yeah.
And then in this he would die.
And then she's emotional
She
about
has
it.
an emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
And that's the like jumping off point of like, there's always a big death in Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah.
And we really haven't had that yet in the MCU.
Other than like Tony Stark, which wasn't in a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
As far Mysterio, who was a bad guy.
Yeah, as far as the Spider-Man movies go, we haven't had the like major like on-screen death for him yet. So like
and like freshman year is gonna cover Uncle Ben for sure. But
so Happy was basically his final
father
connection to Tony also.
Oh yeah.
And seeing as they're doing a college trilogy where everything's, going to shift perspective, it's not John Watts directing anymore, like it's like a new deal. I think that them killing Happy is like the final nail in the coffin of them like separating him a little bit more from the Iron Man role.
Yeah.
And resetting Aunt May in a way as well. Like now because they haven't mentioned Uncle Ben up until this point. So Aunt May doesn't have any like people to reminisce on that she's lost like the other movies have.
Yeah, but now Happy's gonna
now
be that for
Happy
her.
will be the guy that she talks about in the future about, like stuff that they did before his passing and everything.
This isn't even confirmed, but just thinking about it makes me so sad.
It is depressing because I've loved Happy, know, this entire way, but that's a giant thing, and especially how deep this will cut for just MCU fans in general, because he's been
so
around.
involved.
He's been around since Iron Man.
Since Iron Man 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and seeing as,
chef. What are they gonna?
Yeah, what are they gonna do? He just sent them off to make the chef show.
But then we have Jon Favreau Spider-Man drop in.
Oh, he's Spider-Man.
Let's go. Jon Favreau is Tony Stark in another universe.
No, but seeing as he's been in the spotlight a lot more recently. He's moving over to like work on Star Wars projects. He's collaborating on Mandalorian. Like this gives him an outing,
Yeah, that's true. You know what's funny that I just thought of too is that in the 2003 Daredevil movie, Jon Favreau plays Foggy.
Wait, really?
Yeah. So that'd be kind of funny. I feel like Multiverse of Madness. We'll talk a little bit more about that like later before we end this, but I do feel like Multiverse of Madness is gonna have some jokes about
actors playing multiple
characters. If they do more crossovers, if this is actually connecting the Spider-Man cinematic universes, if they do more crossovers with other Marvel Cinematic Universes in Multiverse of Madness, it could be like, oh, the Human Torch looks like Captain America.
True.
Or the Human Torch from the reboot looks like Killmonger. Or like,
God.
Or Foggy Nelson looks like Happy Hogan, or that's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of territory I want them to venture into.
Yeah,
that would be very cool.
Yeah.
Now, I would want who was it in WandaVision that was like her brother, but it wasn't?
Evan Peters.
Yeah, well, yeah, but what was his the dude's name?
Quicksilver.
Pietro?
Oh, you mean Ralph Boner?
Ralph Boner.
Oh, yeah, they're just all dick jokes.
I would want
They're
like
all dick jokes.
the X-Men Quicksilver, played by Evan Peters, to go
Yes.
meet Ralph Boner.
Yeah,
And
man.
be like, you don't have speed, and he's like, what are you talking about?
I am
I-
Speed.
Ka-chow.
Yeah, the other thing I was gonna say too, when you were saying like the agents and everything,
Yeah, what do you
is-
guys think?
I
Like,
think
what do you
it's-
think the deal is with that?
I think because J. Jonah Jameson's supposed to have a slightly bigger role in this movie because they show in the trailer J.K. Simmons like on the street with Daily Bugle trucks and everything.
And that TV spot where he's like, "Was that a dinosaur?"
Yeah, I feel like throughout the movie, JJ's gonna keep ruining Spider-Man's reputation. So maybe
That'd be awesome.
maybe he'll be like, Spider-Man's in cahoots with these villains. Spider-Man's the reason why all these villains are coming over, and maybe the PR disaster for like the Avengers just becomes like such a huge deal to the point where like they're actually sending people in to get Peter because they think that he's like a bad guy.
And
Yeah.
Happy steps in to defend him.
Yeah. I don't think this.
And
I don't
they
think the
dispatch
agents.
him.
I don't think the agents are going to be the reason Happy dies. But I
Oh.
do think it's going to be
Wait,
like the whole thing for.
there's also that like 2-second clip of him failing to catch a pumpkin bomb in his apartment.
Yes.
Oh, true.
And when he's holding Aunt May, he's in the apartment.
Mhm.
So what if your boy
Yeah.
Gabi takes Happy out?
Ugh.
It could, yeah,
You know,
it could happen.
Because you
would
see him
be
try
rough.
midair to catch the pumpkin bomb and he doesn't.
Yes.
So what if that goes off and Happy's just unfortunate?
Or it could turn Happy into Hobgoblin.
Hap Goblin.
I was gonna say. I was saving this for when we talk about the college trilogy, which we can move into that
can
now if you guys
segue,
are ready.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've all gone over our
But-
predictions here.
Yeah, so college trilogy, I really want them to get into some of the weirder aspects of the comics, just stuff that we never thought we would see on screen. Part of that, I feel like, would something that me and Tristan have talked about before, which would be so cool, is if throughout the college trilogy, we begin sort of like Harry turning into New Goblin in the Raimi trilogy, we start turning Ned into Hobgoblin.
Yeah.
And the beginnings of that could be planted in No Way Home, because apparently a leaked part of the story is that Peter, MJ, and Ned all send in their applications to MIT and they get rejected because of the
Oh.
Spider-Man situation.
Uh-huh.
Because Spider-Man is like bad press, or like, they can't accept him in because it's not clear whether he's a criminal or not. And Ned and MJ are also associated with him, so they get rejected too.
I had a
So-
different idea on where they're falling out with
Yeah,
Spark.
I
in the
don't think
movie.
that's gonna be like. I don't think that's gonna be not so much the beginning of his downfall.
Just the
I just
seeds
think
are
it's gonna be.
planted.
It's gonna because up to this point they've had no conflict whatsoever,
Mm-hmm.
Ned and Peter. So I feel like that's just gonna be the thing where we're like, oh, there is potential for them to butt heads.
Yeah.
Like Ned gets frustrated with Peter for the first time on screen because of this whole situation.
I was thinking that in the shot where Ned and MJ are on the scaffolding,
Yeah.
and MJ falls, and
Ned
goes over
pushes
the-
her.
no. Yeah, and that's the falling out.
Conflict.
Yeah, Ned does that on purpose. No, but you see Ned start to go over a little bit as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
But obviously Peter goes for MJ, So
yeah.
what if
He has
what
to
if
choose
catch,
one of
yeah.
them.
but what if it's, what if Tobey Maguire saves Ned or something,
Yeah.
because at that point, assuming that they're in it, the other Spideys are at this part already, it's already
Yes.
established.
Yeah.
So what if Peter obviously very clearly chooses to go for MJ over Ned, even though they both went over the side.
Mhm.
They both get saved because there's multiple Spider-Man going on right now.
But that kind of sticks with
But
Ned.
that little burn that burns Ned a little bit. That,
Yeah. And
they've been friends much
Yeah.
longer than MJ's been in the
Yeah.
picture, and that's already been established in
Far From Home. Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
gonna say it's kind of played for laughs, but you can tell he feels a little
miffed
bit
by it.
jealous.
Yeah.
because he's like, I've known first and I'm no longer, but it's not a competition.
Yeah, so that
But-
would make him
Yeah.
mad that Peter chooses MJ, even though he's been around way longer, and
Yeah.
they're brothers and everything. So like, what if that's what starts, and then once they go off to college, maybe
Yeah.
they drift apart, and then maybe eventually that's brought up as their boiling point,
Yeah.
and then he becomes Hobgoblin down the line.
And we've talked a little bit before about the possibility that at the end of No Way Home, like, I don't know if this will happen, but we've mentioned the possibility of maybe, like, everyone's memory gets erased so no one knows he's Spider-Man again. Yeah. And that could, if Peter afterwards, because of all this chaos relating to his secret identity, maybe Peter feels the need to keep that more guarded, so he makes sure not to tell Ned and MJ, and maybe it's more of a thing like it is in like the cartoon or what, like it, especially in Spectacular, where, like, you know, Peter's getting pictures of Spider-Man, or like every time there's a conflict or something, Peter runs off, and like he's obviously going to be Spider-Man, but no one knows that. So Ned's like, you know, where were you? Like you ditched us, like left us to like fend for ourselves,
like how Harry is in the original Spider-Man movies. Is like, you know, you see the webhead lately? How's he doing? And he's like, I'm not at liberty to say. And he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's kind of hinging on whether or not that ends up happening. But either way, there's a bunch of ways they can set up, like, Ned turning into a bad guy.
I think it'll happen. I hope it'll happen. I want to see Hobgoblin.
And that would be
We don't need any more green ones.
Yeah, and especially because that, like, assuming that they start setting it up and then do it throughout the trilogy instead of just in one movie, it'll be such a crushing, like, story arc, because they've been friends since the first movie. And, like, Ned is, like, the only character that was in Infinity War and Endgame, so he's just been kind of a constant in Peter's life and, like, his closest friend.
It'll be like how the New Goblin thing in Spider-Man 3 was supposed to feel.
Yes.
But done right this time, and without Venom shoehorned in.
Exactly.
In the very end to take all the spotlight.
Unless Venom gets shoehorned in the very
Venom from the Sonyverse gets shoehorned
That's
in.
what was scaring me.
Well,
that was literally the first thing I said when I left the theater after watching Let There Be Carnage. I'm like, oh, so Sony's putting Venom in the third Spider-Man movie again. Huh? I'm like, we're doing that again.
Oh my god. I mean, there's a possibility that if the symbiote does bind with Peter Parker, then that could cause conflict between them because Peter's being mean to Ned. Or, like, he's just being a jerk in general. And especially if Ned doesn't know, again, that Peter is Spider-Man, that could lead to conflict between them.
I didn't think about that.
There are so many ways that can go south, and I want to see all of them.
Yeah,
you know, in this movie,
I just want to see the most solid friendship. I want to see it crumbled into dust.
It's painful, but, like,
it's such a good story.
They need to.
Yeah,
like we were saying, how the Green Goblin could try and get into Peter's head. He could, in this movie, try and get to Ned's head too.
Yeah,
and try to plant those seeds and stuff.
That's true.
And, you know, now there could be wider technology in the MCU that later on Ned could use.
Yeah.
They could just store the entire glider.
Or, you know, maybe at the end of this movie they don't get rid of all the villains. A few of them get away, you know. Or
well,
maybe
what if the universe is
maybe
all
Norman gets away, you know?
Yeah.
What if they let Norman get away and he goes and does his thing for 3 movies?
Yeah.
And then eventually comes back into the picture and Ned stumbles across him. And and Norman turns him into Hobgoblin or something.
I'm very much a fan of the idea that even though these movies will all be contained stories, they'll also be setting up something across movies.
I want a Spider-Man cinematic universe.
Yeah, up to this point, they've been fairly standalone. I mean, obviously, the very end of Far From Home sets up the plot for No Way Home.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Homecoming
it's not
very
really
far removed.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, it's not sort of like it was in the Raimi trilogy, where it's like, you know, Green Goblin is Harry's dad, and then his death is already affecting him at the end of the first one. And then by the third one, that's when he becomes, like, a full-fledged villain.
Yeah.
Like, more stuff like that, I feel like, is interesting. Especially because the symbiote story, when done well, is something that is set up over time. It's already kind of too late for them to do that because of it already bonding with Eddie Brock in the other universe, but still, I just want to see Spider-Man stories that take a little bit of time to set that stuff up.
And telling the Ned and Peter thing over the span of 6 movies instead of...
Yes.
And 8, I guess, if you count, you know, like Infinity War and Endgame and stuff.
Yeah.
But not really.
No,
but,
they're just like cameos.
Just the fact that he's in them, you know,
it
that's
just means, you know, he's an important
time.
part of Peter's life.
Yeah. You get to tell that over a much longer span with much more detail and time and attention than the Raimi movies got to do, or even the Amazing Spider-Man movies, because that was... You're a fraud, Spider-Man!
Yeah. I do wonder, too, there's the possibility for them to bring in other love interests for Peter if the memories are erased. If they're not, then... there might... I just feel like there should be more character-related drama in the college trilogy. Like, they're getting older, like, they're kind of figuring stuff out.
Have more Peter
and,
stuff than Spider-Man stuff in the college ones.
Yeah. And just have, like, up to this point, he has sort of had a hard time balancing, like, his normal teenage life with being Spider-Man. But I want that to sort of, like, actually, like, affect his relationships, too.
It doesn't really, does it?
Yeah. No, it's like he wants to be with MJ, but he has to keep sneaking off, so he can't really spend time with her, but that doesn't really affect their friendship at all.
Yeah, but then
same
she
thing with
just
Ned.
knows, and then they're a couple because of it.
Yeah. And then like with Ned too, like they were best friends, and then he finds out, and then he's still his best friend, and there's not really conflict there.
Yeah.
They just know that he's Spider-Man.
And Aunt May finds out, and we get like 0.2 seconds of her reaction, and then it cuts away.
Yeah.
And then in the next one,
yeah,
they're totally chill.
I
with
want
it.
his secret identity to like make his life hell.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I just want this trilogy to treat Spider-Man as brutally as possible.
Well, I think that's just kind of in part to, I do love these movies, but it has irked me that they kind of give him a free pass in a lot of regards that the other versions didn't. So it's like at a boiling point for me where I'm like, he has gotten a free ride from everybody ever for far too long. Just beat the shit out of him.
And please. Like it does feel like things are going to be rougher for him in this movie, but I also feel like that would be a cool thing if...
I don't want them to literally use magic to reset that and go back to it being splendid for him, though, either.
Yeah, no, I want... But that's the thing, is that I feel like if everyone's memory does get wiped, including the people that he cares about, that becomes another thing that like a conflict for him that causes problems down the line as him and his friends are getting older. Especially because it's like, when you're in high school, it's like, they're going on like the field trips and they got to go to class and everything. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing, so they don't pay as much attention. But in college, when you have more freedom, the fact that Peter's just like, oh, sorry, I got to go do this thing. Like, people are going to be like paying more attention to that and being more generally annoyed.
He becomes brilliant but lazy, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But, and just, that's just plays into the idea of the ending of No Way Home having lasting consequences. Because I want it to be triumphant, but I also want it, like, I think it'd also be cool if everyone did get their memories erased, because that does kind of cause conflict and have long-lasting consequences for the rest of the series, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. If MJ does remember, then during the college trilogy, there should be like a parade, and then he'll swing down and kiss Gwen Stacy. and then
that unlocks her memory.
Oh my god.
She's like, that was our kiss.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Oh god. Watching Spider-Man 3. Every time I watch that movie, I forget how frustrating the relationship between Peter and MJ is in that movie.
Every character has you screaming at the screen, what are you doing?
Yeah. I watched that movie with Luke, my friend Luke, and he just, like, literally, like, after the dinner scene...
I could never watch that movie with Luke. He tears everything to shreds as it is.
but he loves the Raimi trilogy, and he loves he really likes aspects of 3, but when we were watching that movie and we got to the dinner scene, he was like, turn this shit off, I don't want to watch this anymore. I was like, no, we haven't gotten to the scene where he's dancing on the street yet. But yeah, so I mean, we talked about basic general predictions for the arc of the college trilogy. One of the other things I was going to mention was that if Ned turns into Hobgoblin, I think it'd be cool if Flash turned into Agent Venom, but I don't know if they'll do that.
Oh.
Especially because if the symbiote in the MCU is going to be the same one from the Sonyverse, they probably want to do more with Venom and it bonding with Peter. I just think in terms of weird shit that was in the comics that I'd like to see how they would do it on the big screen, like that's just something that I think would be funny, especially with this version of Flash.
Well, maybe if like the symbiote is running around separated from Eddie, like it has a moment where it
like one of those like little Easter egg things.
And then we'll get to see it for a little bit, but then it finds Peter and is like, oh, that's a great match. And then it stays with Peter for a while till it can find Eddie, and then they fight about it.
Yeah. I think one of the other things, generally, that I'd want to see in the college trilogy is just, I want his suit to be more consistent. I know they like doing a bunch of different suits because of merchandise.
Yeah, calm down. Calm down.
I mean, I would be lying if I said I wasn't a fan of putting together, like in real life, just putting together cosplays of all these different suits, just because it's fun to dress up like Spider-Man, and it's fun when they do variations on the suit. But it is getting to the point where he has like 3 different suits per movie.
Yeah.
And it's just you can tell they're not doing it for the purpose of the story. They're doing it so they can sell toys, or like Spider-Man's in this suit, or Spider-Man's in this suit, and they can sell costumes and like all that stuff. And it's like, as much of a Spider-Man shill as I am, and as much as I like them toying around with the costume, I feel like by the time he's in college, he shouldn't be switching what suit he's in every movie. He should be like, this is the I thought that's what it was going to be in Far From Home. Yeah. Because he made his suit at the end of that movie, and obviously it got like charred, but he repaired it, and it was you sort of got the vibe, even when they talked about it in interviews, you got, like, for when they were doing press for the movie, you kind of got the vibe that was going to be the definitive suit. But then we're here, and they're still changing it. And I just feel like by the time he's in college, he needs to have finally just a definitive outfit that carries across the whole trilogy.
Out of like Iron Man's book.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They were Tony Starkifying.
Yeah, it makes so much more sense for Iron Man because they have different abilities.
And he's constantly iterating on the technology.
And Tony's like a crazy insomniac that like stays up all night in his basement making new suits.
Yeah, he's a futurist and he constantly wants to be prepared.
Yeah, there's a reason why Tony had all those suits, and there's really no reason why Peter just keeps getting handed
and that was
variations.
And like another thing that they were saying in interviews for Far From Home that I really loved about that black and red Far From Home suit was that, you know, when he has the Stark suit, the red and blue suit, it has all these different web combinations and all these additional functions that Peter doesn't need because
and the AI companion built in.
They basically, you know, and then when he makes his suit, he doesn't use any of that. He doesn't put any of that in there. He just has the chest piece correspond to the taser webs. But other than that, it's like there's no AI, there's no like 160 million web combinations.
No instant
it's just,
kill.
Because it's all because it's all about his agility and his ability to like use different web techniques on the fly, because that's what he would do anyway.
And his spider senses.
So they literally exactly. They said in interviews, you know, the Stark suit was based heavily on technology, which was Tony Stark's world because Tony made the suit for Peter. But Peter doesn't need it because he's Spider-Man. So I was like, oh, that's badass. Like, you know, just him having this suit that's like caters to his abilities. But now we're in No Way Home, and he's using the Iron Spider suit.
I mean, the thing is, like, it's the line he said, you know, if you're nothing without the suit, you shouldn't have it. And then he, you know, got out of the building that was falling on him with nothing.
Well, yeah, with the freaking pajamas.
And then he put the suit back on anyway.
It should really be like his own touch on the suit. Yeah. Maybe, you know, he used Stark technology to make it, but it was his own.
Yeah, maybe that's what the integrated suit ends up being. Like, I think that when
his own
when
suit.
Doc Ock takes the nanotech from the Iron Spider suit and binds it to his own arms, I don't think it takes all of it. You know, because by the point he's like, you're not Peter Parker and everything.
Yeah.
You see that there's
he's still
at least
wearing the Iron
a
Spider
third
suit.
of the suit is left.
Other than his face.
It's missing in patches on him, though.
Yeah.
Like when it's you see it like moving around to protect what's necessary because that's all that's left.
Yeah.
So maybe that's all he gets away with that suit, and he binds that nanotech to either his Inside Out Far From Home suit, or he makes another one, or something. So I don't know. Maybe that's where they're going, where the definitive version of his suit will be the integrated suit, because it's like the last iteration of the like MCU arc of it. He's taken the Iron Spider as long as it goes until almost all of the nanotech is gone. He has just enough left because you see it's like the logo. It's the spider.
Yeah.
It's still iron and it goes across his shoulders. So maybe that's like all that's left. It's just like
maybe.
a chest plate.
He can't really keep piggybacking off of Iron Man
Also,
anymore.
I love me or hate me for this statement, but I really want to see the Iron Spider suit gone.
Me too. I don't like it.
I'm so tired of him with those giant freaking arms. I'd get rid of him.
I do like the moment where Doc Ock is like, looks like we've got competition.
That's
because he has
cutesy Marvel throwaway line.
Yeah.
But like,
it was
gone.
fine.
Get
It
rid
was
of
fine for Infinity War.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't use it that much in Far From Home outside of just him wearing it for like the charity event.
It doesn't need to be.
I don't
every
like it.
Movie.
The thing
he can put that in a closet
Yeah.
until another Thanos comes.
Yeah, the thing that bothers me is just that, like, I want the definitive suit to be a little bit more colorful. Like, I like the red and blue Spider-Man suit, and in every iteration after the initial one and the homemade suit, it's just kind of, it feels like it's been a little bit duller. I like the black and red because it's very, like, the red pops because of the black, but like especially with the Iron Spider and like kind of now with the integrated suit, it just feels like it's like dulled by the metal of it, and especially the colors on the Iron Spider just felt very like muted.
It seems like with each suit they're taking the color out of it.
Yeah,
more and more.
and then like, you know, in Far From Home for most of that movie he's in like the shield like black like stealth suit.
Yeah.
And then in this other, when he's not in the integrated suit, he's in his suit inside out, which is also black. So I'm just like, if you are gonna, I want him to have a definitive suit, but if you're gonna give him a definitive suit, I want it to be red and blue. Mm-hmm. And I want it to actually like have nice colors.
In conclusion, let Spider-Man be Spider-Man.
Yes. Yes. And have him make it himself.
Yes, yeah. I want to see him make the entire suit from scratch.
Yes.
If Tobey Maguire could make that entire suit from scratch,
I'm willing to overlook that because it was 2002. You know, I get like same with like the Green Goblin suit. Like I know he was like super rich and the head of Oscorp and everything, but it does still seem like a little out there for him to create a suit like that. Yeah. So I just like to excuse those away as it was 2002.
It's funny because the original makeup they did for the Green Goblin that they didn't follow through with because it was too expensive
made him like green.
Yeah,
and
I love that, and I would have loved that in the movie, but it makes less sense.
Yeah.
than the helmet. Yeah. So
yeah,
but I want to see Tom Holland's Peter like make an entire suit from scratch, like not with the help of like any Stark tech or machines or anything. He's in college. I want to see the broke college kid like throw together a Spider-Man suit again.
I'd even like, even if it's not like cheap, I'd just like for him to just like use everything he's learned to just make one suit that just is the only suit that he would ever need.
And I want a new spider. That's another thing. I don't like this one spider.
I like the tiny spider in the center.
It can be tiny, but I don't like that it's just a hexagon with a little head.
I've always liked that design.
It feels.
I feel like the suit. I feel like
Google Spider-Man. Like it's too simplistic.
I can see where you're coming from, but I don't know. I've always liked it. I'm not a huge fan of the big spider, like over the shoulders and covering
I
the whole chest.
don't like the big over the top all over the place spider either. Yeah. But I do want it to look more spider like. The current spider was fitting for like Tony Stark made it. He's the
and especially because it's like a button with multiple functions.
Yeah, and
like it's like it causes the suit to like tighten around him or like it like, you know, there's like a drone
off and has a hover drone. You know, that all made sense for Tony, but like now with Peter, I hope he gets a new spider. It can still be small. I like the tiny spider, but I don't like it just being a hexagon.
Yeah, I feel like he probably will too, because they keep saying that
it's a new trilogy.
The new trilogy, they're trying to set it apart. So, I thought too about like the naming convention, because obviously the Homecoming Trilogy, home is in every title. I've thought about like what they could do, in terms of like having consistent naming across the three of them. I thought about maybe having it be school related, like having the last one be like
Spider-Man homeschool.
Yeah, or like not with home in it, just like the last one could be like Spider-Man graduation. Like I've just like one of them could be like Spider-Man outclassed. It's funny because in his first year of college, one of the names I came up with for the first movie was Spider-Man freshman year. And now they're using that for the Disney Plus show.
What if they just got super lazy with it and they're like Spider-Man freshman year, Spider-Man sophomore year,
Oh
Spider-Man
no!
And then they make a fourth one because they have to do freshman through senior year.
No, they cancel it.
They
reboot it, get a new actor.
Or they just call them Spider-Man 4, 5, and 6. Kind of like when they gave up naming the Mario Karts.
Oh yeah.
Like it was like they didn't even name it after the system anymore. It was like Mario Kart DS, Mario Kart Wii, and then Mario Kart 7 and Mario Kart 8.
Yeah. They did home for these ones, so it should be away for the next 3.
Do you think they're going to keep up a naming convention, or do you think they're just going to be titled whatever?
I feel like
it'll be.
I don't think it'll. I definitely don't think they'll have home in the title because home is like the Homecoming thing.
Yeah.
I do think because Homecoming did have a consistent naming convention, they'll try to for this next trilogy. And considering that they're saying that these next 3 movies are going to be part of like a cohesive whole.
Yeah.
So, since they did that for Homecoming, I feel like they'll feel like they have to for this one. And it would make sense. I just don't know what they would do. It would have to have something to do with the story.
How come the Iron Man movies got away with just being numbers?
I don't know. Because
Captain America,
first
Avenger,
because they
Captain
didn't
America,
think about
the Winter
all
Soldier.
of it. Okay?
Yeah, and also
they did for
like,
the Cap movies, and those came out at the same time.
Well,
don't worry so much.
The thing I think about is just that Iron Man was what started the MCU, and 2 out of the 3 first MCU movies were Iron Man movies.
Yeah.
So because Iron Man 2 literally was the next movie to come out after Incredible Hulk, so they were just like, I don't know, Iron Man 2. But as more characters get introduced, I feel like it makes more sense to have subtitles.
Yeah.
And every
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
And like even now, like they announced Black Panther 2, and then that turned into Wakanda Forever. Captain Marvel 2 turned into the Marvels. Like as the universe grows and more characters are introduced. But considering that Iron Man was still one of the only characters in the universe at the time, it makes sense for that to just be Iron Man 2.
Yeah. Guardians gets, kind of a pass.
Volume 2.
Yeah,
Volume 2
they
and
get to
Volume
make a cheeky tape deck reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, do we have anything else we want to say about the college trilogy before we move on to sort of my final little tidbits of things I wanted to talk about?
I think I'm good.
Yes, all right. I want us to, and we can overlap on this, but I do want to see, just name off the top of your head 3 villains that you think like each movie would deal with.
Well, this is interesting for me because Sony is still trying to set up the Sinister Six in their own universe. And now the Sinister Six is kind of going to be a thing in No Way Home with past villains, but they're still making villain movies, and it's clearly still with the intent that they'll all cross over at some point. So I don't know if the villains will be the ones from the Sony movies, but if Ned does turn into Hobgoblin, I feel like he should be the main villain of the 3rd one.
Yeah.
I would like for Kraven to be a villain. I don't know how that would work with Kraven having his own movie. Same thing with Venom. But, I mean, Mysterio was top of my list for a while, but then we got him and he was perfect. So let me think. What are other... just thinking of, like, really bizarre ones, like Big Wheel and, like, Paste Pot Pete and, like, Stickman.
I was going to say
Jared...
Screwball.
Oh, God. I hate Screwball.
I hate Screwball, too, but I think that's more so just because I was, like, yearning for a character that's, like, trying to defame him, and now we're kind of getting JJ back in the picture.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, like, deep-cut Spider-Man villains. Because I've been reading a lot of...
Spiders, man.
I've been reading a lot of comics. Yeah, I mean, like... That's so funny, like, just thinking about, like, a lot of the ones I've read have been, like, big events or, like, the multiverse or something. I mean, something else I thought... I think about, like, them doing a lot of stuff a lot. Like, I've thought about them doing, like, the Clone Saga with Tom Holland, which would be so cool if, like, I mean, it'd be something that they would need to set up over time, unless they wanted to, like, give the clone his own TV show, because one of the ones I read was Spider-Man The Lost Years, which is basically when Ben Reilly goes off and does his own thing for a while, and it's almost like a Punisher-esque, like, down-to-earth story, where he's just living in Salt Lake City and, like, fighting, like, the criminal underworld.
Yeah.
So that would be cool. So maybe they could do the Jackal, where, like, because the Jackal's whole thing in the comics is that he's upset after Gwen Stacy dies. He becomes obsessed with bringing her back to life, and then he clones Peter Parker, and then the two Spider-Men fight each other.
Do you think they'll do the Clone Saga in the college trilogy? Though
I don't know. That's the thing, is that it's a convoluted story in the comics, but it comes from a simple basis. So I feel like I feel like they could do it at some point. I don't know if it'll be the movie after this one.
Yeah, just
especially if it's supposed to be like a back to basics type thing.
Like, what do you think is going to be like the most clear cut, like obvious way without like much setup necessary, other than like Hobgoblin? But like,
I mean,
first two movies.
If Kingpin is coming back, they could do Kingpin and have him team up with Daredevil. Because they're setting up Daredevil in No Way Home. They're setting up his connection to Peter Parker.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen
Hopefully.
the leaks, but assuming Daredevil is in the movie, they're setting up his connection to Peter Parker. So obviously they want them to interact more. So maybe they could do Daredevil and Spider-Man, because they like to also do one MCU character in each movie with him. So they could do Spider-Man and Daredevil team up against Kingpin. I'm trying to think. I mean, they could do like something with him and Deadpool at some point. But I don't know. I don't know who they would
like
fight.
villains.
I would think that like Morbius would play a role at some point.
Yeah.
In the
Well,
future.
that's the thing, is that I'm trying to think of ones that aren't in the Sony movies.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's weird, because they're obviously going to be movies focused on those villains, and they probably want to get Spider-Man more involved so that they can all... Because if they do a Sinister Six movie, all these people have to have a reason to hate Spider-Man, right?
Yeah. And like Vulture
like,
was a part of that.
Yeah.
And he has his own little...
I feel like that would be a standalone though, like down the line.
Sinister
like,
Six?
A Sinister Six.
No,
like,
I
not
agree.
a part of the college
I
trilogy.
agree, but it's just odd, because that means that these villains that would make sense to be in the college trilogy, like Kraven and Morbius, probably won't be. And that makes it harder to figure out who the villains are going to be for the college trilogy.
Yeah.
Well, here's my guess in the order that I think it would go in. I think it would be Kingpin for the college trilogy for the first movie.
Yes, that makes total sense.
And then Venom. And then Hobgoblin. Because I feel like logistically, I don't think they would want to, just because I don't think it would look good necessarily for them to immediately jump into Venom right after 3 movies. Because of the whole Spider-Man 3 thing, you know?
Yeah.
Doing 3 movies and then immediately being like, all right, Venom's back, you know, would be
plus Venom
kind of
3,
redundant.
Yeah. Plus, assuming
Venom 3
that
also
they,
has to happen.
Yeah. And assuming that they're keeping Spider-Man movies on the same schedule of one, like, every other year, then that means that Spider-Man 4 is going to come out the same year as Venom 3. So Venom 3 will probably be something separated, and then if they wanted to make Venom the bad guy, they could do that in Spider-Man 5.
I would think the dynamic would be, like, in the first movie, you know, I think it'd be a cool dynamic of, like, struggling, broke college kid versus the guy literally called the Kingpin because he's stupid rich. You know? Like, that kind of, like, class conflict, like, 1v1 would be really cool.
Yeah.
And then the whole symbiote conflict. And then that could, like, the college thing against Kingpin could, like, spark the flame against Ned and set that up there.
Yeah.
And then the Venom symbiote would get
cause further conflict.
That would be the breaking point. And then it would...
They wouldn't be friends anymore by the end of that movie, but
Yes.
you wouldn't, and you'd only get a slight tease of what's next. And then
and like at the end of Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, and then the big finale in 6 would be Hobgoblin, and he would be the problem to deal with in the whole thing. Kind of like the emotional pain of, like, working with Otto in the PS4 game, and then by the end of it, him being the bad guy, and then having that, like, emotional breakdown, like the whole "you knew," like, that whole, like,
Oh.
Like, we could stop this together, and he's like, I don't trust you anymore. Like,
Yeah.
that whole thing,
Ow.
yeah, so, I think Kingpin, Venom, Hobgoblin. I think that is my guess for the trilogy, and I want to come back to this podcast in 6 years.
After the college trilogy is done.
And see...
We were wrong.
Yeah, see how on the money or how false, like, everything was, if this is just a complete shot in the dark.
Yeah. And if they were to do the Clone Saga at any point, I feel like it'd be cool for... I don't see them doing it. Like, as cool as I think it would be to see how they would do it on the big screen, I feel like it's something that's more likely to play into the animated Spider-Verse movies, where, like, they meet up with Ben Reilly from another universe.
That'd be cool.
Or a show.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that I was going to say, like, if they're willing to do a live-action Spider-Man show outside of, like... Because they're doing Silk. As far as I know, Disney has the rights to make Spider-Man shows as long as they're under, like, 45 minutes, I think. And Sony has the rights for anything 45 or above. So Silk...
Very specific.
Yeah. So that's why Sony is able to make the Silk show, but Disney is able to make the cartoons. So...
So
one
Silk
of them
series is going to have a really long episode
probably
time, right?
Yeah. So, but what I'm thinking is that if the Jackal was a bad guy at some point and a clone of Peter Parker exists, they could have it just be like it is in the comics, where you assume that he's dead, but then he gets his own show, and that show is an adaptation of Spider-Man: The Lost Years, and then eventually he comes back into the movies as Ben Reilly. I think that would be very cool. I don't know how they would fit it in, but...
I feel like it's the 5th movie that I'm not sure what would happen, and maybe that could happen then. Because Kingpin in the 4th movie makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And having Venom involved to mess up Ned's relationship in the 5th one also, like, is a really good segue into him being the Hobgoblin in the 6th movie. Mm-hmm. But I feel like a lot more could happen in the 5th movie.
We're really banking on Ned becoming Hobgoblin.
Yeah,
that's what I want to see most of all.
Yeah.
Like, if nothing else we predict today comes true, that's the one thing I want to see come true.
It's just the most Spider-Man thing to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
And just because Peter, like just in terms of, like, seeing Peter Parker's life sort of, like, be, like, kind of spiraling out of control because of his Spider-Man persona, which is one of the staples of the comics, is that his life as Spider-Man makes his life as Peter Parker harder. That story just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Especially just because Ned has been such a major part of all the movies so far. So, leading into this new one, if they want to change things up,
Take Ned
drastically shift that dynamic.
Maybe him and Ned have the falling out in the first movie, and then that sets up him meeting
Harry Osborn
in college. Mm-hmm. And maybe down the line Ned would kill Harry.
Ooh, yeah.
That'd be another gut punch.
Yeah. God damn. There's so many things that could happen. But yeah, no, Ned becoming Hobgoblin is the main thing that I'm banking on.
Yeah.
I want them to do the Clone Saga eventually, but I don't know. I feel like I'm in the minority there.
I mean, it would be very cool. Movies. I just don't... There's so much to fit into only 3 movies.
Yeah. And, like, I feel like eventually... Like, obviously they're getting into the multiverse in No Way Home, but I feel like they kind of have to bring it back to basics for the college trilogy. But I feel like they could also, if they wanted to do stuff later on, like maybe after Tom Holland is done playing Spider-Man, then they can get into the Spider-Verse and start exploring, like, Spider-Man 2099 or, like, any number of multiverse variations outside of the animated movies. They're making the Spider-Verse sequel, and they're making an animated Spider-Women movie. So maybe, I mean, they're doing the Silk show. Maybe eventually they'll do, like, a live-action standalone Miles movie, live-action standalone Spider-Gwen movie, maybe 2099, that kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe once Tom is just done
and
ready to move on,
they can just start exploring the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, they do, like, a live-action Spider-Verse.
Because
at that point in time,
Tom back for a cameo in one of those.
It'd be cool if they did, like, an anthology type thing where every single movie is a different character in a different Spider-Man universe, but they're all part of the Spider-Verse series. And then maybe eventually, like, they all cross over.
Yeah.
I think that'd be
like
cool.
the Avengers.
Yeah.
Like, but as a Spider-Verse.
Exactly.
We're like a
yeah.
Jimmy Timmy Power Hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. My bad.
The ideal
a
crossover.
Nicktoons Unite kind of thing.
Yes.
You know.
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, if they wanted to make a live-action Spider-Verse, I feel like that makes so much more sense than making movies about the villains. And like they were saying,
I don't know why they would do that.
I don't know. And I feel like, I mean, they were saying like they were gonna make like a Madam Web movie, and I'm just like, why?
Who?
Why are you scraping the bottom of the barrel when you have so many other opportunities right in front of you?
Yeah.
Like, why not make a 2099 movie?
Why not make a Miles and a Gwen movie?
Yeah.
Like, they are hot right now. Everybody knows these characters
Yeah.
now. Like, spend some time with these characters before, like, throwing more, like, random...
Yeah. Or
out of
setting up the
nowhere
villains
characters at
without the
all.
hero that they're supposed to fight.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
If we get
Yeah.
a Tombstone movie before I get a Spider-Gwen or Miles movie,
Yeah.
I will be upset.
it's just ridiculous.
Like, coming soon, Tombstone
Yeah.
gets his entire movie dedicated to him. There's no Spider-Man involved in it whatsoever. It's just about Tombstone doing Tombstone
Yeah.
stuff.
And as long as we're talking about anthologies, I did just want to briefly mention an idea that I think would be cool, is if they did a movie like Logan, but with Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker.
Oh no, I'd cry. I'd cry again.
I would cry just reading the news that was in the works.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to see a picture. I wouldn't have to see a trailer. I
just
wouldn't even have to see it. I would just cry
if
knowing
they
it
did
was a
all
thing.
of this earlier, then Hugh Jackman could have been in the MCU.
Yeah. But,
That's
I mean,
so
that was
sad.
just the perfect send-off. People have been saying now that Tobey Maguire is probably going to come back in No Way Home, people are like, does this mean we will eventually see Spider-Man 4? But I feel like at this point, it couldn't be the Spider-Man 4 they were planning back in the day.
Because that
if
was
they wanted to
supposed
make
deal
something
with
else,
Vulture.
exactly, and like
Mysterio.
yeah, and if they wanted to do something else with, if they wanted to do something else with Tobey, I feel like that would be the best thing for them to do, is do like a TV show maybe, or an anthology part of the Spider-Verse series.
Maybe a limited run
where-
like Hawkeye.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, exactly. But it's just like, it is like Old Man Peter, like kind of like on one final mission or something.
I know, I just saw either today or yesterday that, like, Kirsten Dunst was saying that she wishes that they would put her in something again. And she referred to herself as old girl Mary Jane. Like, she wishes that they would put an older version of MJ in something.
That'd be cool. It'd be cool if it was like, sort of like, I mean, I've just read Spider-Man Life Story, and like in that, Spider-Man kind of gets older and him and MJ have a family and all that. It'd be cool if they incorporated aspects of that into it.
Even if it was just a rom-com without the Spider-Man part, and it's just Peter and MJ, and they, like, split, and they've been divorced for 8 years or something, but it's all about them finding love again.
And it's a realistic drama with a Spider-Man sort of backdrop.
And the final shot is them meeting in a coffee shop again, just like the end of Spider-Man 3, and it's just a full circle, like, oh, like...
Yeah.
These
I
are
mean,
the
we
things
have
that
no
I
idea
want.
what the story of Tobey Maguire could be, because they're taking characters from many different times. So this could be like a much older Spider-Man, way after he fought these villains in the past.
I don't think they're gonna de-age him for No Way Home.
I don't think so.
I think he will be
Yeah,
older.
I think they'll all be this, like, the age that they are in
It'll
real
hit
life.
that
and
much
then they'll talk
harder
about... Yeah, they'll
if
talk
he gets
about,
to
like...
talk to Otto again.
Yeah, and, like, we've had... Like, him and Andrew have had adventures in their own universes for years since those movies.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I feel like Andrew would be a little bit younger than Tobey would be, like in the Spider-Man
Well, yeah,
story.
in the mythos of the universe.
Yeah,
yes,
like
yeah.
it would be pretty soon after Gwen
Yeah.
Stacy passed.
But that's basically assuming that real time has passed since their last movies came out. So, like, since Spider-Man 3 came out, that amount of time up to now has passed for Tobey. Same thing with Andrew for Amazing Spider-Man
That
2.
would be pretty cool.
Also, I want to say before I forget, I forgot Felicia Harding was supposed to be in both Spider-Man 4, and then she was in
And
Amazing Spider-Man. She was in Amazing Spider-Man 2. They were setting her up to be Black Cat.
Yeah, that's right.
That's another aspect
forgot
that would
about
be
that.
something completely forgot about.
That would be something that
I
could
want
do
Black Cat
if,
in these movies.
Well, that's
now.
the thing. They could do if they really actually wanted to, because I don't think Peter would like, you know, if they wanted to throw in conflict between him and MJ, that could be something where
that could be in the
that
first
could be in the
movie with the King, if it's dealing with Kingpin.
Yeah.
And he's, you know, goody, but he's also super poor. And then you have this middle ground of this thief, like, caught in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And he's having a fallout with Ned. MJ doesn't remember anything, so they're not together anymore. Black Cat's in the way. There's this conflict of him and Kingpin, and even she's caught in the middle.
Yeah, and even if MJ does remember everything, that could just cause like some tension in their relationship.
Yeah,
because he's constantly going off and doing stuff with Black Cat, and she's like, "Oh, what are you doing with this girl?"
Yeah,
like
she'll
all the
see
time.
Spider-Man and Black Cat together all the time.
Yeah,
and like you know, like the Daily Bugle's like taking pictures of them and like posting like, you know, like, "Oh, are they a thing?" Like
maybe they get together at a parade. And he kisses her.
A thief at the parade.
At the parade, you know, they're there to steal the float.
So, okay, so I mentioned
like one way or another at the end of this movie, the whole, you know, reputation thing of him killing Mysterio is going to be settled.
Yeah.
It's either going to be everyone forgets, or like, you know, they figure out that Mysterio was actually setting
a fraud.
I feel like they'll forget though, because I think he's still out there. I don't think he's.
I think Mysterio's there. I think he didn't.
I don't think he's dead.
Yeah, it's funny because at the end of Far From Home, Edith is like, "All illusions are down, Peter."
Yeah, he's like, "Is this real?" He doesn't ask, "Is he dead?" He starts to. He's like, Is this real?" And she says, "All illusions."
Yeah, but but like he could just be there like playing dead, and then after he left, like he escaped or something. That's the thing,
though. He starts to say, "Is he dead?" But
and there's other ways to fake your death.
Yeah,
like, kind of make it seem like your heart stopped.
Like
or something
cloning
like
with Miles Warren, aka the Jackal.
No way, bro.
What if the Jackal was already introduced and we didn't?
What if the Jackal is William, the scientist that got yelled at
by
Obadiah Stane?
With scrap.
And he's obsessed with cloning because he wants to bring back Quentin Beck.
I'm not Tony Stark, but I could be if I.
I'm gonna resurrect the barf program.
That would be really funny. Okay, so I mentioned my old man Toby idea. So kind of the
geezer.
So we're coming up on 2 hours now. So
this is a good episode.
This is a very good episode.
Vibe.
So
you know, I'm sure people would like to be a fly on this wall.
Now I gotta link.
I
that
hope
video.
you're enjoying.
So we've made it this far. There's one more thing I want to talk about before we close it off, and it's not necessarily related to Spider-Man. It's just briefly I want to touch on how do we think this is going to set up Multiverse of Madness, because
I like that.
In this this is something that I've been wondering since the beginning, because the synopsis of Multiverse of Madness is basically Strange does something like it's confirmed that they're going to encounter Mordo again and he's going to be bad. But, you know, obviously the multiverse is a huge part of the movie. The synopsis says that Strange, in doing something, Strange unleashes an unspeakable evil or something. The thing that I'm confused about right now, where I'm not sure how they're going to do it, is obviously they're breaking open the multiverse in Spider-Man. But it's pretty much exclusively limited to just Spider-Man characters. So I'm curious whether or not the beginning of Multiverse of Madness is just going to be like sort of like just a cold open where it's just like everything is already going to shit, or whether they're going to supposedly solve the multiverse problem in this movie, but then something else is also going to break open the multiverse
I think
in that movie.
I pretty much have an entire start to finish on what I think that's gonna do.
Yeah, what I think about this is that this specific spell was about Spider-Man, so this is, you know, Strange's first time dealing with the multiverse in a whole.
Yes,
which is going to spark his curiosity about it. But then, you know, Wanda's going to get involved with something, probably it's either him going to her for knowledge about the multiverse, since now he's been, you know, revealed to the multiverse. He wants to know more about it. He always likes dabbling in things he's not supposed to get into. See,
that's the thing about it that I feel like would be redundant, is just that in this movie, you know, Wong already warns him, you know, this spell is too dangerous, you shouldn't be casting it.
Yeah.
And then he does it anyway, breaks open the multiverse, sees all the consequences of it. So I find it hard to believe that he would do something in the second one.
I don't think
that
it's
would
him.
open it up,
start it
yeah.
up again.
I feel
Alright.
like after this, it kind of like fractures things. That's why he was
Yeah.
up on the.
Yeah, like they're starting to come through.
Yeah.
I can't stop it.
All right,
like,
yeah, this is what I think.
Yes.
At the end of WandaVision, you see her reading this mysterious
The Darkhold
book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only one that's missing from the Sorcerer Supreme's collection and the first Doctor Strange movie. I think that she is using that to find her kids,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So, obviously, the kids in WandaVision weren't real,
Yeah.
but they can be.
In
So,
some universe.
Sort of like Kingpin in Spider-Verse, like
I
trying to
think-
get his family from another
Yeah,
dimension.
I think that at the same time that everything's happening in No Way Home, like that's Wanda's like cue to do what she can and use the powers that she's learned and everything to investigate the multiverse herself. So Strange is trying to close everything and nobody knows what Wanda's up to, but she keeps it open. She keeps that door open. She keeps the multiverse like thread unraveling. She's unraveling it as Strange is thinking he's fixing it at the end of No Way Home. So obviously her having that book is going to come into play because that's supposed to be his,
Yeah.
But, so I think the unspeakable evil that he unleashes in trying to fix things is Wanda. I think that she is going to put the fate of everything like after her kids. Like, her kids come first. So
That'd be so cool. I wanted so bad for them to go all out with Wanda being a villain in WandaVision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's what that was a tease for,
Yeah.
and she, still wasn't apologetic for what she did at the end of WandaVision. So, like, she's going to delve into that, and Strange is going to have to fight her to fix everything.
Yeah.
And that would kind of make sense because apparently Doctor Strange was supposed to have a cameo at the end of WandaVision, but that got canceled.
And that movie got rewritten by Raimi when he stepped on.
Yeah, so it's possible that, people were saying, like, there was, like, the Nexus event was, like, when the whole multiverse opens was multiple things happening at the same time, which could be, like, Sylvie killing Kang, Peter and Doctor Strange messing up the spell, and then Wanda, like, using, like, the hexes or whatever that she used in the final battle of WandaVision.
In the comics, though, she's referred to as a Nexus being.
Yeah.
So,
but, like, she's like,
capable of that more than just a simple event. Like, she herself has more power than the typical Nexus event would have. So I think the whole Multiverse of Madness thing is because of her. Because typically there's a rupture in the timelines from a Nexus event, but she is a being that does that.
And I feel like Strange might have been the one to, in the original version of Multiverse of Madness, I feel like he would have been the one to cause that to happen. But, obviously that movie got rewritten. His cameo was taken out of WandaVision.
And they got reordered
also,
a little bit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Multiverse of Madness was supposed to come out before Spider-Man originally.
Yeah, I think so.
And then they got swapped around. So it's possible that they kind of, what was supposed to happen at the beginning of Multiverse of Madness maybe got put into Spider-Man. It's interesting because for a period of time, Spider-Man 3 No Way Home wasn't going to be in the MCU because of the deal falling through.
Right.
But Tom Holland said they already pitched the movie to Sony. So it's not really something that we can really speculate on because we really don't have that much information. It just makes me wonder if No Way Home's story was the same, and if it was the same before the deal got reinstated, how would they have delved into the multiverse without Doctor Strange? Like, I think in the comics occasionally, like, a villain like Mysterio is known to actually do something like that does have to do with the multiverse, but as things were going in the cinematic universe up to that point, that kind of thing wouldn't really make sense. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a big question mark, pretty much. I'm just curious because I feel like I do kind of feel like at the end of No Way Home, it's going to be an ending for that story, but it's not going to be in a way where it's like Doctor Strange's work is done. Like, I feel like it's still going to be known. Maybe that'll be why they have a post-credit scene or something to set it up with it being Wanda.
He has to leave to go
yeah.
with, you know...
Yeah, because he's like
somewhere else.
Sort of like in Crisis on Infinite Earths, when it's like this shouldn't be happening. Why is this still happening?
Yeah.
And then he realizes that it's Wanda, so he goes to stop her.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just very curious how that movie is going to begin.
I think we'll get a taste of it in this one, but not a lot. Like it's gonna involve him finding Wanda, probably messing a lot of things up.
Mm-hmm.
But I forgot about the part that she was looking through the Darkhold.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she has the Darkhold.
Yeah,
she's just looking. Yeah, she's just looking for her kids.
Yeah, and then she hears like an echo like of her kids.
Yeah,
like,
just crying out for help
at the very end. Yeah, so
yeah,
I think that's what sends her on the spiral to break open the multiverse to try to save, in quotes. You can't see me, audience, but I'm doing like air quotes. Save her kids from whatever in some other timeline, and Doctor Strange is like, you can't mess with other timelines. I just taught this to Peter Parker.
And they said,
it.
And they said too that Mordo is going to be in this movie, and he'll probably be the main villain. So that'll probably be his motivation for going against them. Because
either that or he's like a bait and switch.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because they did. Because Kang obviously is the villain in Ant-Man Quantumania, but in this one, you know, obviously Mordo's whole deal in Doctor Strange 1 was like, you can't mess with reality like this. Like, you know, it's not supposed to be this way. Something bad is going to happen. So the fact that they're messing with something with consequences as far-reaching as the multiverse, I feel like that gives him, outside of him already, you know, deciding too many sorcerers, that does kind of give him motivation to go after them and work against them.
He could be a third factor fighting both of them independently.
That movie's just going to be so insane.
That one's going to be great, too. Yeah. And it's a Sam Raimi movie, so
And Bruce Campbell.
I'm hoping they go with the horror aspect of it.
I want this movie to be scary. I want this movie to be a thriller. I want this movie to be everything that Sam Raimi is capable of.
Yeah.
I love that man.
Yeah, and
bring him back.
The thing that I saw about... I remember reading when they renewed the contract initially was when Sony and Marvel renewed their contract initially for Spider-Man, it was contingent on one more standalone Spider-Man movie and one more crossover. And I was always like, what is that crossover going to be? And I think it'd be cool if it was in Multiverse of Madness, but it wasn't Tom Holland. It was a different Spider-Man.
It was Tobey.
Yeah, because then Tobey gets to be in a Sam Raimi Marvel movie again.
Oh, wow.
And there'll probably be a Bruce Campbell cameo at some point.
He's definitely in it. The car, that iconic car that's in every Sam Raimi movie is definitely going to be in it.
And I think it'd be cool if they did sort of bring in, like, maybe only for this movie, because obviously they want to work in X-Men and Fantastic Four, and like maybe they will want to take certain characters like Deadpool from the other cinematic universes.
How are they going to work all that in as a completely different
I would think it would be funny if, just as one last hurrah for all these other characters, they just have certain characters join them along the way from other universes
in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, so it's like
some of the X-Men
they meet like
Fox characters,
some of the Fox X-Men, or like the Ben Affleck Daredevil, or like older versions of the Punisher, or just
John Bernthal back in the MCU. Bring him.
Yeah, but not even like Netflix Punisher. I mean like Punisher Warzone Punisher, like earlier versions of these characters that we never really thought we would see again. I think it'd be cool if they just like have some like really deep cuts in there. Maybe even like the original version of Howard the Duck from
Nick Cage as Ghost Rider.
Yeah,
oh
exactly.
My Lord, please.
Exactly.
That's all we need. That's all we need.
If that made a cameo in Multiverse,
it'd be perfect.
Strange and Ghost Rider Nicolas Cage.
And it's like, I don't think that
it's fate.
Any of those characters will have roles in the MCU outside of this movie, but I do think as long as they're jumping from universe to universe throughout the movie, it'd be cool if they kind of, maybe if they like met up with some of them, or like maybe they built a team of like older like Marvel characters, like older iterations of them. And of course, you know, we talked about like the jokes of like, oh, you look like Captain America, or like you look like Killmonger or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, they already kind of do that in the comics, like I've seen one interaction with, I think it was a Spider-Man comic, where they're like in the back seat of like a Shield limo with Nick Fury, and it's like one of the characters is from an alternate. Oh yeah, it's like Spider-Man's from an alternate timeline. He's talking to Sam Jackson, Nick Fury, and he's like, Nick Fury's like, you know, do you have one of me in your universe? What's he like? And Spider-Man's like, he's white. He's white. And Sam Jackson's like, I'm sorry. Yeah. You know, and it's like, they could totally do something like that. Where
they
like,
could make Bruce Campbell the white Nick Fury.
In my universe,
in
my universe, you look like Captain America. You know, in my universe, you're just Nicolas Cage.
I want to see him say "Flame on" again. Please.
For one last ride.
One last flame on.
Yeah. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
But, alright, well, I mean...
I think we've neared the end of the road.
Yeah, I mean, I've pretty much exhausted everything I could ever possibly have to say.
We've practically talked about Spider-Man No Way Home for the entire runtime of Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
why don't you listen to this in the theater while the movie's going on?
Yeah,
live commentary.
See if we called anything out.
Yeah.
You know, tell me the details. Obviously, we can hear you clearly.
Yeah, hopefully, if we find the time to all get together again, we can do retrospective after the movie comes out sometime. Maybe we'll wait a little bit. Maybe after Doctor Strange comes out. I don't know. But at some point, now that we've talked about all this stuff, it would be interesting to get together and do another episode. Just
seeing if we called it.
Seeing if we called anything. Seeing if we were wrong. How our predictions for the future change depending on how No Way Home ends.
Yeah.
And all that junk. But for now, I think this has been a very as thorough of a discussion as we could possibly have. So definitely, if you've got any thoughts as to where you want things to go or what you think will happen in No Way Home, definitely leave us a comment. If you're listening on YouTube, I haven't uploaded the podcast to Spotify in a while. Maybe I'll do that eventually.
Get on that.
But if you're if you do happen to be listening to this on Spotify at some time in the future, go to our YouTube and leave us a comment.
Yeah, if you are watching this after seeing No Way Home, let us know in the comments, if you think we were right on the money or if we were wrong. Or
if you're watching, if you're listening before, then tell us your predictions for sure.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this after the college trilogy is over and Ned didn't become Hobgoblin, I'm sure you can expect us in our 30s making another podcast to complain about it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we'll be back when we're 30 to talk about how Ned wasn't Hobgoblin and I want a refund.
All right. Well, thank you both very much for joining me for this conversation. Thank you, listeners, for sticking with us through this discussion. We hope you enjoyed it. I'm very excited to see this movie and see where things go from here.
If you couldn't tell.
Yeah. But, as of right now, this will probably go out before the movie is out, hopefully. Hope so. I guess all we can do is wait and see. But for now, we hope you enjoyed listening to us. You guys want to plug your shit real quick before we get out of here?
I mean, you already know, twitch.tv/skater799, baby.
Every Monday and Friday, baby.
That's the stream schedule. That's
He's kept it up.
Yeah.
He has.
He's the only one.
Proud of him. Yeah.
I dropped YouTube for this.
And I dropped Twitch. You can find me over at YouTube at youtube.com/Tristan's account. No spaces. Tristan is spelled with an O, by the way. Don't get it twisted.
We'll see how pretty your face is after
my
fist is kissed.
What the hell?
Now you have to link that.
Yeah. So, I'm Chris Trineri. You can find me at youtube.com/Chris Trineri. You can find me on Twitter at bagel_Chris. That's where I'm the most active out of any of my internet platforms. I haven't made a video in, I think, a couple months now.
Me too.
I'm just kind of taking a break for a little while.
Yeah.
I do plan to come back and make bigger and better videos eventually. So definitely subscribe to me over there if you're into the kind of stuff I do. I do a lot of different stuff on that channel. But anyway, this has been the Unstable Opinions podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope to see you next time, whenever next time may be.
Yes.
And until then, we hope you have a great rest of your day or night, week or month, whatever it may be. Hopefully we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Buy my merch.
See ya.
See you, chump.